Alright, so Steve Ditko died in between streams. So I figured I should have a lot more empathy. Oh, I need to pause my stream. Oh god. Okay, my stream was running in the background, so I was watching a live stream while streaming, and I didn't get an encoding overload. So that's a very good sign. But yeah, Steve Ditko died, and so the theme of today will be Steve Ditko dying. And Steve Ditko, I believe, was the art designer, did the art for the original Spider-Man comics. So, is this now the Steve Ditko memorial stream? Not exactly. It's like a thin excuse to read a little bit of the Cuckoo universe. And why do I have an encoding overload? I'll kill you. Okay. I think my computer's still slowly warming back up, so we might have a little bit of encoding issues here and there. But at some point this was around before I made the decision to make the Cuckoo universe public, so 2018, but early 2018, I said, I want Spider-Man in the Cuckoo universe. And Spider-Man never really showed up in the Cuckoo universe because I didn't have a minute. So I decided I'll bring him in, but I didn't want to bring him as a high schooler now. I wanted to be a proper Spider-Man, in the modern continuity of 2018. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to track down. Basically, I wanted 2018 Spider-Man stories to start with the death of Gwen Stacy and move on from there. So I took the most important events from the Spider-Man comics in Marvel and made them as sort of plot points for 7 sort of one-shots. I guess it's a series of one-shots, which isn't what you'd call a series, or a one-shot. But they would be Spider-Man Year 1, which would be the length of one issue, 6 pages, Spider-Man Year 2, Spider-Man Year 3, all up to about Spider-Man Year 7. It would basically show Spider-Man and how he started off in 2011, and through each year up till 2018. So you would get to see the Cuckoo universe and the events of the Cuckoo universe through Peter Parker, the photographer, as well as Spider-Man. So it was also supposed to be the most rushed and concise way I could get Spider-Man up into the current continuity with his own little continuity package attached. And then it was a way to sort of meld the universe together better, because a lot of stories in the Cuckoo universe, in case you hadn't noticed, originally intended to be separate. So Spider-Man would really help glue it together, while also making the most rushed Spider-Man story of all time. So Spider-Man Year 1, Year 2, and Year 3, that's as far as I got so far, are a total mess, and there's the most superficial level of character development in it. It's just a joke, and it has not yet been released to the public. So I thought today we'd do a little bit of a live reading of Cuckoo Universe's Spider-Man Year 1. Let me check the dashboard. There we go. Oh no, not that. Jesus Christ. So let's give this a go, shall we? Spider-Man, Year 1, 2011, New York City, the Second American Civil War. So now already we have to backtrack with some continuity here. The Second Civil War, what was that in the Cuckoo universe? Basically, it's where I vaguely heard about the Marvel comic Civil War, about how there was a Superhuman Registration Act and that divided Captain America and Iron Man. So I thought I could take that premise and put it into the Cuckoo universe and have the Superhuman Registration Act very shortly after Blackest Night, where zombies came out and killed everyone. It's a long story. Or a long premise, not a long story. Zombies came around, killing everyone. Batman had a Black Lantern ring, yada yada yada. The president, who at this time is President Adam Wayne, no relation to Bruce Wayne, says, the CIA shows up and they're we have some secret satellite footage that Batman had a Black Lantern ring before the Blackest Night event. And the president's all and it's a running theme in the Cuckoo universe that there's a very angry president being angry. So, Adam Wayne's if we knew about this beforehand, maybe we could have studied the ring, we could have stopped Blackest Night. I'll make the Superhuman Registration Act so that superheroes have to register with the government whatever evidence they find that could possibly lead to an alien invasion or a zombie apocalypse. Well, we'll get first dibs on being notified about that, you know? So he says, Superhuman Registration Act, secret identities need to be revealed, yada yada yada. Batman says no. Superman says, maybe. Because Superman's a American government crony type person. So you know the story. Separates the superheroes, starts a civil war. What makes the Cuckoo Universe Civil War different from the Marvel Comics Civil War is that the entire population of the United States, this becomes a very divisive issue. Public relations and public perception of superheroes is a big thing in the Cuckoo Universe, and sometimes people are like, yeah, go superheroes, you saved us from an alien invasion, and sometimes they're like, screw the superheroes, they're being vigilantes, they're taking justice into their own hands, they're most likely mentally unstable, seeing as one of them's just a man in a bat suit, and so the people who really like the heroes the people who don't like the heroes support registration. Those who don't like the heroes are against it. It becomes such a divisive issue that those against registration end up forming their own militias. And it leads to most of the fighting of the Second American Civil War as it is between normal people with guns. Between the United States Federal Army and the rebels. Let me check a few things here. Because stream chat's pretty much died. It says video output low, but still says 3 watching, so. So, the Civil War happens, and it only lasts a few months, but it's this bloody rampage that goes across the entire country. So, we start off in New York City in the Second American Civil War. Rebel forces made their advancements to the streets of New York City, opening fire as they pushed through American federal forces. Go, 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 one rebel cried. Hiding in the shadows of the alleyways were the aged Ben Parker and his nephew Peter Parker, who he had taken under his wing. The two were out talking after Peter was having issues with bullying at his high school, Midtown High School. What they didn't expect was the attack that would be made by the rebel forces that day. It was utter chaos in the streets. So those of you who know Spider-Man already know where this is going. Alright, so Peter Parker and his Uncle Ben are sort of hiding from, the rebel forces massacring people in the streets of New York City during the Civil War. Come on, Peter. Come on, move, Peter. We gotta go, Ben cried, hurrying Peter along. Peter was small, frail, and awkward, causing some of the bullying for the poor freshman. As they ran through the streets, Ben came to a terrifying conclusion. People with good in their hearts were hiding in their homes. It was the thugs and criminals who were out and about, looting and murdering people. Soon, Peter and Ben were hiding in some rubble, with Ben hiding his nephew as rebel troops ran by, one of them waving the flag of their cause. Patched onto the green flag were the symbols of their heroes who opposed the Superhero Registration Act: Batman, Green Arrow, Martian Manhunter, The Flash. Some people, Ben sighed. I don't know why I was trying to go with that. Some people, The flag for the rebels was made when I was in, middle school. It's just, a flag with a little, St. Andrew's cross in the corner, like the Scotland flag. And then, it was supposed to be, X for no. And then just the symbols for all these anti-registration characters that are just sort of thrown about on it, just stitched on. It was a lazy middle school era design. But it's canon now. Are you guys alive out here? Jet freaking died. Oh, okay. I wasn't updating since the window wasn't open. Stream seems smoother. Viva la Resistance. I bet Uncle Ben's gonna live. That's definitely what Uncle Ben's are known to do. Some people, Ben sighed, looking at the symbols on the flag. Now, Peter, I'm sure they didn't mean for this to happen, but they need to understand. It's like I always say, Ben sighed. Oh, and it's not a Spider-Man story if we have this little mantra. With great power comes great responsibility, Peter asked, reciting his uncle's favorite phrase. Ben looked down at him with a smile. So I actually like how I incorporated the continuity with how Spider-Man's going to be Spider-Man's going to bring this idea of what a superhero should be to the Cuckoo Universe, because the other superheroes of the Cuckoo Universe have kind of screwed it up over time. because, you know, you have a whole country-ridden civil war going on where everyone's dying. You have massacres in the streets all in the name of these superheroes. So that's not very, you know, heroic. So Spider-Man's going to... His role in the Cuckoo universe is to ground the heroes back to what it means to be a hero. If I ever finish the Spider-Man series and lead up to Spider-Man being around in modern continuity. So, let's see. Precisely. Come on. We gotta get home to Aunt May. She'll be worried. The two began running. Unfortunately for them, as they ran, they ended up encountering a looter with a gun who aimed at the two. Valuables. Money. Now, the man said. You don't have to, Ben started. Peter shivered in fear. U.S. federal troops could be heard marching into the alley. Crap. By the way, I use a lot of vulgarities in my writing. This is because I'm trying to express the art of how people would talk, I guess. Crap, the thug muttered. So I can't do audiobooks of my own series. I feel you, man. Writing is hard. Yeah. The thug muttered, shooting without a second's thought. Peter flinched at the sound before looking up at his uncle. Uncle Ben was bleeding. That was the day Peter lost Uncle Ben. And again, we're rushing through. Each issue is supposed to be an entire year, just represent an entire year of Spider-Man's career. So we gotta keep moving this on. Across the street was a laboratory that was being broken into. See any good crap, man? One thug asked. Aw, heck, all this science crap has got to be expensive, right? The other thug replied. Ew, gross, look at this. Spiders. One thug pointed to a canister holding several spiders. Little did they know that these spiders had underwent genetic changes. Hey, catch, the thug laughed, tossing the canister to his comrade. Ew, what the crap, man? What the freak, bro, the thug said, jumping out of the way. The canister crashed with a shattering noise. Ah, heck no, I'm getting out of here, he said, and the two left. So Spider-Man is the hero this city needs, but he doesn't deserve. Yes, that's very true. Peter Parker, meanwhile, had been kneeling in a puddle of his own uncle's blood as his uncle struggled to speak to him before the life left his eyes. Peter knelt there, crying forever as one spider from the canister followed its natural instincts, making its way to Peter before it eventually bit his right hand. Ow, what? Peter yelled, looking at his wound. Little did he know that the bite would give Peter strange genetic powers, such as the ability to create a spider web. See, it's a lot of tell, don't show in these Spider-Man stories, because I don't bother trying to show him learning how to use his powers. It's just, he got bit. Little does he know that it's going to give him this list of powers, just like, bluntly put. Strange genetic powers, such as the quality of writing for this Spider-Man series is about the quality of writing of my elementary and middle school stuff. Except it's written in 2018, so I don't have an excuse. He could climb walls and have what he called a spider sense, along with enhanced strength. He discovered the abilities piecemeal over time. Again, tell, don't show is being used here. So 2012, we've moved on to after the Civil War. Events around this time, the Crisis on 2 Earth. I don't think I mentioned that here. Let's see. Adrian Toomes. Is Toomes a real person? Yes, the Vulture. Okay. Adrian Toomes had developed a suit to allow him to commit greater heists in the New York City area, dealing in alien weapons. See, I'm trying to condense, like, the most inspiration this is from Spider-Man Homecoming, the beginning of that. So I'm trying to condense that into a little thing here. Dealing in alien weapons, Toomes had enough of the government telling New Yorkers what to do. Indeed, ever since the Invader invasion, now the Invader invasion sounds redundant, but the alien species is called the Invader, and when they refer to the Invader invasion that happened in 2010, where the invaders attacked Earth, that led to the Justice League being formed, etc. And it was a lot of big events happened back to back to back in the Cuckoo universe, so nobody gets a break for a while. The Invader invasion is quickly followed by the Apocalypse invasion, and then followed by Blackest Night, and then followed by the Civil War. So the Invader invasion, the Blackest Night, the Apocalypse invasion, and the Second American Civil War. Infrastructure in New York City was toppling, and the city was competing with Gotham City for the highest crime rate. Toomes would use the anarchy at the time to get rich. With his flight suit developed from Apocalypse tech, he took the name of the Vulture. See, where Apocalypse invaded during an event called Genesis 2011, right before Blackest Night. And by right before, I mean Blackest Night starts literally, it sort of overlaps with the Genesis event. Dear God, I just spit on my screen. That's why I don't talk so often. But yeah, it happens back to back. But a lot of Apocalypse soldiers from Darkseid's forces are just dead. You can find alien weaponry anywhere. There's no Chitauri invasion like there is in Spider-Man Homecoming, but you get the idea. What we're going for here. Well, his uncle died and he got bit by a spider. What a bad night. That and a good portion of the New York City population was massacred. Such a bad year. The world is heck. Christ, and I thought my comics were convoluted. This is what happens when you have a continuity that starts like when you're 4 years old. Peter sat on a roof in New York City, overlooking the city. A lot of use of the word city there. He had a bad day. For one, Aunt May was always trying to set him up with a girl named Mary Jane, a daughter of her friend. Peter had no desire to be set up with some boring girl, Aunt May knew. That being said, he was glad that Aunt May was starting to seem like her old self again. I don't think I say it, but the implication here is that Aunt May went through a hard time after Uncle Ben died and New York City was massacred. Peter spent most of the day being bullied by Flash Thompson. And it wasn't just the fact that it was done in front of everyone in the cafeteria, it's that Liz Allen, Peter's crush, saw Flash take... Oh god. Control-Z that. Saw Flash take Peter's own lunch and shove it down his shirt. Humiliating. Even after he had sensed what was going on through his spider sense. Even after he had sensed what was going on through his... Even though... That's an incomplete sentence. I'm going to have to edit that at some point. But he knew he had to be careful with his powers. Ever since he accidentally punched a hole in his bedroom wall after Uncle Ben died, he knew he was dangerous, maybe even superhero level. However, and that sounds very awkward, maybe even superhero level, but you have to understand that the Cuckoo universe has had about 4 years of superheroes at this point, so superheroes aren't a crazy thing anymore. However, in the skyline of the streets, Peter saw the Vulture swoop in and harass a convoy carrying Apocalypse tech. Peter was in the city, overlooking the city, while thinking about the city. The city roared, the city cries. That sounds exactly like something I would type. A villain in New York City? Peter asked... That's such a... Why did I write that? Like, how did it come to my mind to write a villain in New York City? Absolutely unheard of. Peter asked in confusion to himself, because we're trying to rush this story out real fast. Wow, I guess we really have gone all Gotham City here. Peter then dug into his school backpack. He had always maintained secrecy in using his powers, but he knew what Uncle Ben told him. With great power comes great responsibility. Vulture isn't using his powers in a responsible way. What a bad Vulture. And Peter couldn't stand by either. Peter soon produced the outfit he had created not long after Ben died. It was time to break the suit in. Using technology he had bought while using his own technological skills, Peter had created a suit that interacted with the stronger web canisters he had made to amplify his web powers. We're going with a mix of the sort of Sam Raimi comic hybrid, where yes, he does have genetic powers to shoot webs out of his wrist, but it's not exactly reliable webbing. So he has the web fluid, the artificial one, to amplify it. Try to have the best of both worlds here. To amplify his web powers. Soon he was in the costume of the hero he had always wanted to be. He was the Spooderman. Very silly. That villain isn't being responsible. Bad villain. Go and time out. Exactly. You have technology I want, Vulture said, clearly outlining his character objectives and goals, breaking through the back of the door of the armored truck. 2 guards were posted there with laser weapons, immediately firing back. Let's be clear, laser weapons aren't a crazy thing at this point in the Cuckoo timeline. Please, Vulture scoffed, dodging the blast. Suddenly, the Vulture was kicked into the truck, his wings flying everywhere as Spider-Man had crashed into him with his legs, having swung from building to building. Inside the truck as well, Spider-Man quickly turned around and fired his webs at the open doors of the truck and closing them shut. And who do you think you are? Asked a New York City guard as Vulture came to. Just your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? Spider-Man asked, saying the catchphrase. Spider-Man asked with a shrug. We've been calling the shots in NYC for a while now. The last thing this town needs is a bunch of vigilantes like Metropolis or Gotham, Vulture yelled, tackling Spider-Man. Actually, I think that's exactly what we need, Spider-Man said. You know, with the whole villain issue and all that. He webbed up Vulture's wings, delivering a solid punch to Vulture's face and defeating him. What a quick fight scene that was. Again, it's almost like I'm trying to rush this story out. J. Jonah Jameson was the head of the Daily Bugle. I think at some point I actually have J. Jonah Jameson yell, "I don't want X, I want pictures of Spider-Man," like the meme. But I don't think it's in here. J. Jonah Jameson was the head of the Daily Bugle, one of New York City's primary newspapers. He sat in his office in anger. It had been, as you'd expect from J. Jonah Jameson, it had been so long since the Bugle had a good story. Since the war, probably. Soon, he heard a knock at the door. "Ah, Miss Brandt, come in," Jameson said as his receptionist Betty Brandt came in. Betty Brandt was a sophomore when she dropped out of Midtown High School after family issues following the Civil War. Now, her job was everything to her. "Mr. Jameson, the big story is here," Brandt said with a smile. "Oh?" Jameson asked. "In front of the precinct. The Vulture's been captured." "Oh wow, about time the police did something we paid them to do," Jameson smiled. "It wasn't the police," Brandt said. "There was a note attached to the criminal. All it said was, 'From your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.'" Jameson smiled. A hero in New York City besides that secretive Moon Knight. Maybe this was what he needed, because Moon Knight had already been introduced beforehand at this point as a New York City hero. In fact, I believe Moon Knight might be the first New York City-based superhero at this point in time. But he sort of sticks to the shadows. Not many people know about him. If you go digging for Moon Knight, you're going to find, hey, there might be a dude called Moon Knight out there fighting people. But Spider-Man is the first New York hero who's really out and about in public. Spider-Man is going to bring responsibility to the city. Toombs is such a frail old man. It's to be expected. That's true. Vulture, you failed this city. Since the war, which in this universe happens every 5 minutes, that's very true. I believe the wars don't really start to pick up until about 2015 when Bavaria comes to the scene and starts invading every country every year. So you have like an average about 7 major wars per year up until 2017. But at this point in time, the war would refer to the Civil War. So it would seem. Yes, indeed. War never changes. That's very true. Peter walked home to his Aunt May's house. "Oh, Peter," Aunt May said as Peter arrived. "Welcome home. That took a little while. Ran into some traffic. Took forever to cross the sidewalk," Peter lied. "Oh, well," May started, but Peter was already walking upstairs. "Sorry, Aunt May. I gotta do a lot of homework." "Well, okay." Peter entered his room and used his web to shut the door. He collapsed onto his bedroom, breathing hard. He had just done it. He had made his debut as Spider-Man by defeating one of New York's criminals. So began the first year of Spider-Man. So began Spider-Man Year 1. And isn't it beautiful? So that was the first installment. Judging by your voice, this isn't hot Aunt May. No, it's not. It's very old, frail Aunt May. Peter's such a... That's true. That's very true. Alright, yeah, it's not hot Aunt May at all. So we go to... That was the first year of Spider-Man being Spider-Man, all condensed to 6 pages. Now we have the second year condensed in 6 pages. 2012, see, it alternates like... Number 1 was 2011 to 2012, number 2 was 2012 to 2013, etc. Spider-Man Year 2, 2012 CE, Midtown High School. Peter found himself being pounded into a locker by the school bully Flash Thompson towards the end of the school day. Peter's spider sense burned like a flame in his head, screaming at him to run, to get out of the way. But Peter knew that if he suddenly showed skill without any sign of training at all, there would be suspicion. Peter needed to prevent anyone from figuring out that he was Spider-Man. "You're freaking weird, Parker," Flash grunted as the moaning Peter fell to the ground. "You know what your problem is? You don't even bother to fight for yourself. And not even for other people either," Flash said. "You're not like Spider-Man or anything." Indeed, Flash was a major fan of Spider-Man, with no idea that it was his cherished Spider-Man who he was beating down at that moment in time. After Flash left, Liz Allen arrived to Peter's side. Peter, Liz cried. Peter, are you alright? Yeah, I'm fine, Liz, Peter started. His crush cared about whether or not he was dead. A smile started to form on Peter's lips. Today didn't have to be that much of a terrible day. Hey, this person's an actual human. Who cares about if people are being beaten into their lockers? Wow, what a genuine critique from Flash Thompson. Indeed, I guess. Oh, that Flash. With that, Liz stormed off in the direction of Flash and went. The direction Flash went, and Peter was left alone. The pain that... So again, Liz might not be such a good person. The pain that shot through his chest at the thought that Liz had no feelings for Peter may have hurt him more than Flash had. Oh, the teen melodrama. Still, Peter had no problem standing up and walking out of the school. He was in desperate need for money, and today was the day he was going to find a job. After all, being Spider-Man didn't pay. He had to sustain himself somehow. Peter made his way to the Daily Bugle building, looking upon the various newspapers framed on the wall. So here, like, sort of how the Daily Planet has their, newspapers have their major headlines that made them a lot of money that people always bought. The popular headlines. So let's see what major headlines the Daily Bugle has. U.S. forces take Iwo Jima. I guess it's from, 1944 or 1945-ish. Probably 1944. And Twin Towers destroyed, so 2001, and Superhero Registration Act repealed. the major events that the Bugle has reported on: Iwo Jima, 9/11, the end of the Civil War arc. By the way, the Civil War story arc ends with the pro-Superhuman Registration Act people winning, but so many people were upset that they won. And President Wayne was like, people are already angry, they fought a whole war for this, I'm just going to repeal it. I'm just not going to go through with it. So the whole war was fought for nothing. Theory, Liz Allen dies in this continuity. I don't think so, no. It's bad when I have to try to remember if I killed someone or not. Get me pictures of Spider-Man incoming. Possibly. I don't know if I actually wrote it anywhere. I think I did because of the self-awareness I like to put in my writing, but... hey, Betty Brant said from her position as receptionist as the people throughout the office went around and the sounds of their typing could be heard. Peter saw behind her was another framed paper. The Menace of Spider-Man. Peter was sickened to be here, especially when the Daily Bugle was the outlet that had turned the public against Spider-Man. However, when he saw Betty, for some reason he felt better about his visit here. Hey, Peter said. She looked so different compared to Liz Allen. Liz's long blonde hair was gone, and there was short black hair. Glasses, too. But for some reason, the jump in Peter's heart was identical to the ones he had when Liz turned a corner, showing that Peter Parker is very superficial when it just takes looks, man. Can I help you? Betty asked. I was wondering if you had a position for a freelance photographer. I kinda need the money. Because every person... you walk to your job and say, I kinda need the money. Like, you don't go through those forms where you, lie about how you're so dedicated to helping people to be a cash register. It's, I kinda need the money. Oh, there it is. Gotta love the hate for Spooderman. Spooderman, I'm sorry. Peter is the love at first sight. Yeah, exactly. A freelance photographer, James Jonah Jameson. I hate saying James Jonah Jameson, Jesus Christ, asked, entering the room. Oh, no, we don't need a photographer. Jameson waved his hands in a shooing fashion. I have photos of Spider-Man, Peter said. Jameson, shut up. Spider-Man? I've been dying for photos of that jerk for months, Jameson said with glee. Peter pulled out the photographs of Spider-Man fighting crime. He had webbed up a camera in a convenient place for the fight, with the plan of selling them. Oh my boy, these are wonderful. I do expect payment. Jameson glared at Peter. Fine. Brant, give this Joe Schmo some cash and we'll hire you, kid. The name's Peter Parker, Peter said. Alliteration your name. You'll love it here, kid. Oh, I forgot about... Again, the Cuckoo Universe likes to get self-aware sometimes. So, Peter Parker comes to a place where the head of the office is J. Jonah Jameson with a receptionist named Betty Brant. And he says his name, and J. Jonah Jameson says, alliteration to your name. You'll love it here, kid. That's all you need to work at the Daily Bugle. I forgot about that. Sometimes I love my own writing. Peter couldn't help but feel disgusted with selling his photos to his #1 public relations monster, but the look in Betty's eyes helped to alleviate him of his concerns. Liz Allen was gone from Peter's mind. A big part of Peter Parker's continuity in Marvel Comics is like his relationship history. And I wanted to keep that in Cuckoo continuity. But because I'm running rush stories, I have to rush these relationships real fast and develop them real quickly. And by develop, I mean not develop at all. Eddie Brock must be shunned, yeah. He's just hiding in the corner, crying over the fact that his name has no alliteration. Exactly. 2013 CE. Dr. Bruce Banner and Dr. Otto... By the way, Bruce Banner... This is his first chronological appearance in the Cuckoo universe, but not the first published appearance. The first published appearance was Avengers, which was published like a few months before this one. And that story is not even public either. A lot of the Cuckoo universe is... Like, a lot of it is public, but also a lot of it isn't. Bruce Banner isn't the Hulk at this time. He won't become the Hulk until Avengers, which in the context of continuity is about like 5 years later from here. Dr. Bruce Banner and Dr. Otto Octavius, and Bruce Banner has always been a boring character to me, so I make him an archetype in the Cuckoo universe, and it's just sort of the sleepy guy, the sort of Ben Carson sleepy guy, just, you know, lazy, deadpan, monotonous voice, to sort of juxtapose him with the Hulk, who's, you know, full of energy. But Dr. Bruce Banner and Dr. Otto Octavius were working alongside their underlings in the Lex Labs laboratory in New York City. In Avengers, Bruce Banner is being hired by Tony Stark to do studies on... No. Bruce Banner first appeared in Avengers, but he didn't become the Hulk until the first arc in Cuckoo Universe, which is public. That is public. Transformers Retreat is the name of that story arc. But at the end of Avengers, they have Loki's scepter, and Tony Stark and hires Bruce Banner to come study it with him. Cuckoo Universe number 1 or 2 opens up with they're at Avengers Tower. Tony Stark and Bruce Banner are studying it, and Bruce Banner notices that Tony Stark has some gamma radiation, like some gamma cells, stored in some Lex Lab equipment. And Bruce Banner sort of shuns it because he's like, Lex Lab equipment is like poor, it's like cheap, it's not really high quality. You're putting us at danger having it stored in Lex Lab equipment, because Lex Luthor is the type of billionaire to sell cheap knockoff scientific equipment. So Bruce Banner kind of looks down upon that, and of course that eventually leads to him becoming the Hulk. Spider-Man Year 2 is where we see Bruce Banner's disdain for Lex Lab equipment comes from, because he's working in a Lex Labs laboratory. Dr. Bruce Banner and Dr. Otto Octavius... Where can I find the rest of your work in the Cuckoo universe? It's actually spelt Cooku, which no one can guess that spelling. And then Ultrox has the link. There's also a section in the Discord. I can't spell, apparently. Well, stuff. Look at that. Thanks. Most of it's not good. Hey, everyone. Hello, Flame Lord. We're just going through some of my old Spider-Man fanfic, I guess, in memory of Steve Ditko, which is going to make him roll in his grave, although I'm sure he's not even in the grave yet. Octavius was a brilliant scientist who had developed an apparatus that allowed him to control 4 different mechanical arms. However, because of his short stature, his poor eyesight that required him to wear outlandish goggles, and his extra limbs, many of the scientists bullied Octavius, calling him Dr. Octopus. "Are you sure about this, Otto?" Banner asked, looking at the containment tube. "I know Mr. Luthor wants us to work more with the atomic technology we found in the Gotham City fragment, but... I know Mr. Luthor wants us to work more with the atomic technology we found in the Gotham City fragment. The Gotham City fragment came from one of the robots that... Oh, yeah! The atomic technology that we found in the Gotham City fragment. There's a story where... So in my elementary school era Transformers comics, there was this thing called the Underbase. Just because I heard the word Underbase from a summary of the Marvel Transformer comics, had no idea what it was. I just theorized it would be like this underground base, like a network of tunnels throughout the Earth that the Autobots use to deploy themselves. Turns out the actual Underbase is like this asteroid with all this like Cybertronian knowledge contained to it. So the Underbase from the Cuckoo universe and the Underbase from Transformers lore have the same name, completely different concepts. But one of the themes in my elementary school Transformer comics is that people would fall into the underbase tunnels and just end up lost underground forever. I would later show that Red Hood Jason Todd would find Bumblebee, Soundwave, and the Decepticon little cassette people, and Red Hood would be like, your boss Megatron abandoned you. You work for me now. And Red Hood was sort of in this emo phase where he's like, Batman doesn't like me, boo hoo hoo. So he was making a group called the Outlaws to sort of be his own little gang to go around, and the Outlaws included Starfire and Soundwave, the Decepticon. So for a while he was with Soundwave, and then he attacked Batman in Gotham City. So Soundwave revealed himself in Gotham City. The Decepticons located Soundwave because he reappeared for the first time in forever, and Megatron and Starscream and other Decepticons attacked Gotham City. Soundwave was like, oh, Megatron didn't abandon me. Why'd you lie to me, Red Hood? And then it was just a massacre before the Decepticons went back to the Nemesis, their ship. So apparently they're working on... It's been a long time since I've written this, so I don't even remember it. So apparently they're working on a fragment of a Cybertronian that they're calling atomic technology. Are you sure about this, Otto? Banner asked, looking at the containment tube. I know Mr. Luthor wants us to work more with the atomic technology we found in the Gotham City fragment. Transformium! That's what they're supposed to be working with. Let's move on from that. Of course I'm sure, Octavius replied. The equipment is cheaply made, mass-produced. I think there will be a leak, Banner replied. The Gotham City fragment came from one of those robots that attacked Gotham City last year. I, for one, am not sure we have quality equipment to look into this stuff in the atomic level. To be honest, the infamous Clone Saga or One More Day are probably worse. Probably, yeah. You and any other coward in this outfit may go to work in the quarantine area if they so choose. The true scientists will actually do their work, Otto snorted. But to his dismay, everyone went behind the quarantine zone but him. Dr. Octavius, Banner started. Otto couldn't help but hear Banner use the derogatory term for himself. I still don't think this is a safe idea for you. I have the arms. I can deal with the substances at a distance, Octavius said, moving his mechanical arms with his mind, and so he began to set about with his work. However, Banner's prediction that the equipment was poor quality came true, as atomic radiation burst from the tube. Otto! Banner cried. Eventually the radiation settled down and Otto stood with his arms. The radiation had turned him hostile. Dr. Octopus. And this is your basic comic book. Oh, this dude gets radiation and now he's evil. That's the very most comic booky thing I've ever heard. Freaking transforming him. That's the reaction you should have. Yes. Dr. Octopus. Fine. If you're so obsessed with my failure, then a Dr. Octopus I will become. A Dr. Octopus I will become. What a terrible line. With that, Dr. Octopus broke through the lab and into the streets of New York. Someone get me Mr. Luthor, Banner sighed. I'm gonna have to quit after this. It looks like the Transformium has connected Otto to his mechanical arms than ever before, one scientist reported, using their term for the metal they got from a small piece of Megatron from Gotham City. Oh, so the thing is, somehow part of Megatron's personality imprinted onto Dr. Octopus, which, by the way, that's a cliche I absolutely hate, that through the vaguest connection, the personality of some evil person imprinted onto another person, turning them evil. I hate that cliche. That's exactly what I did here. Also, I gave an origin for the term Transformium. By the way, the term is not Transformium in the Cuckoo universe, it's living metal, but the humans don't know that. They just call it Transformium because they know it comes from Transformers. That is the most comic booky line I have ever heard. Yeah. I don't know which line you're specifically referring to, but all of these are comic booky lines. It's made him increasingly hostile, said another scientist. So moving on from that train wreck of a scene, which, by the way, I'm going to have to fix a continuity error that I made. For those of you not keeping up in the Discord, you know that I'm writing a book that's pretty much light novel size, 200 pages, that's set in the Cuckoo universe. Red Hood has a fragment of Transformium, and he calls it Transformium, and people ask, why'd you call it Transformium? And he's like, because it comes from Transformers, and then they make fun of him for it. I'm going to have to add a throwaway line that he also kind of heard it from Lex Labs or something. Just sort of make it so that two people didn't independently come up with the term Transformium. So anyway. I forgot all... Frankly, sometimes I forget I wrote these stories. The Spider-Man stories. Spider-Man limped through the streets of Manhattan. He had fought Dr. Octopus in combat as soon as Dr. Octopus was unleashed, but he had soundly defeated Spider-Man. So again, we're rushing through this story. I think in the original, 60s comics, the first time Spider-Man fought, Dr. Octopus beat the crap out of him, and Spider-Man's like, oh no. Although I forget what caused the Spider-Man No More story. This might be like an amalgamation of the first appearance of Dr. Octopus in Marvel continuity and the Spider-Man No More story. Oh man, this superhero stuff is ridiculous. Everybody should just, suddenly? Oh, that wasn't an in pain, it was an in surprise. Suddenly, Moon Knight arrived. It's about time we met, kid. New York City is a big place. Two heroes can share it. Moon Knight. It sounded like you were just about to quit, Moon Knight ridiculed him. What? Well, yeah, that sounds about right. Don't quit, kid. You have a gift. That spider stuff you do, Moon Knight remarked. Spider-Man looked up at Moon Knight with a smile. I guess, after all, with great power comes great responsibility. So with that short little motivational speech from Moon Knight, he pretty much said, hey, you can't quit, you got spider powers. So Doc Ock transforms into Megatron. I guess that's one way of looking at it. Peter Parker entered the Daily Bugle waving some photographs. Oh, Jonah, got some Spider-Man pics of Spider-Man pics of him taking down Dr. Octopus for you. Peter smiled. So he skipped the whole... There is no fight scene between Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man here at all. We just completely skipped through that stuff because we're rushing to make this stuff. Oh my god, it makes so much sense now. So Moon Knight taught Peter the importance of responsibility. It's more of Peter was reminded about responsibility from Moon Knight. I guess. Oh god, you're getting too cocky, kid, Jameson scowled, looking over the photos. These were dangerous to get. Gotta pay double the usual rate. Supervillain stuff. Oh, come on. Maybe another newspaper would want them? It's not like the Bugle has been built by Spider-Man stories, has it? Jameson scowled. Fine, Jameson said. Brant, give this brat his money. As Betty Brant spoke to Peter afterwards, they spoke freely before she leaned in and spoke into Peter's ear in a whisper. Peter blushed. Yeah, that's great, Peter replied to Betty's whisper. Her confession. And that was how Peter got his first girlfriend. No build-up to how Betty Brant got slowly attracted to Peter Parker. The assumption is that stuff happened in between these, cuts. We're getting the highlight reel of Peter Parker's second year as Spider-Man here. Better than Nick Fury, I guess. I'll have you know the Bugle was built on World War II and 9/11. That's good insight here, yeah. So that's year 2. Probably worse than year 1. Which means we go to year 3, the last one I've written so far. And again, we're supposed to get up to year 7 or something. Spider-Man year 3. 2011, the Second American Civil War. So we're flashing back to the Civil War. Dr. Kurt Connors was a skilled chemist and scientist. But when the Second American Civil War broke out, he felt that it was his calling to defend his country, enlisting in the United States Army. But today, he was here in New York City during a great battle with the rebels. He went through the city street as part of a convoy with armored vehicles serving as the pace setter, which he walked alongside. He felt overly bulky within his U.S. military uniform, but he had a level of confidence to do his commanding officer and his unit good. For those of you who've not been keeping up with Dreadcore, you know bad things happen to U.S. soldier convoys in the Cuckoo universe. Let's see. Rebels coming from the end of the road, a machine gunner cried out. Out of fear and training, Connors raised his rifle and as the rebel troops began to pile into the street, opening fire. Open fire came in order, and soon the two combating forces opened fire at each other. Connors assumed a position behind rubble to serve as cover as his war friend Ted Salas came to his side. After the loud, ear-piercing sounds of shots being fired became accustomed to Connor's hearing, he looked over to his buddy. This is ridiculous. Without air support? Connors asked. You kidding me? The front lines are over near Gotham and the Virginian border. High Command couldn't care less about New York City. This was a surprise attack, Salas replied as he fired over his cover. I'll see if I can get a better position, Connors sighed, standing up absent-mindedly. Are you crazy? Get down, Salas yelled. Suddenly, a rebel rocket came at Connors, resulting in an explosion that sent Connors flying. Thankfully, Connors survived, but he was horrified at what he saw. His right arm had been blasted off his body. I wonder who the villain of Year 3 is going to be. He asked as Radix read about Kurt Connors. Crap, Connors. I bet it's right. Maybe you're like, yeah, I wonder who it could be. Yeah. 2014. Midtown High School. It was after school, but Peter Parker was where he felt the most at home. The chemistry lab in his high school, working side by side with his teacher, Dr. Kurt Connors. Another alliteration, dude. Jesus Christ. Peter was working with his own project, looking at how he could use chemicals to provide more effects for his web slingers. He looked over at Connors, whose lab coat looked funny as he had no right arm. What you doing, Doc? Peter asked. Peter does not have a consistent, voice, sometimes he's, really arrogant and sometimes he's really timid. There's no middle ground. Connors looked over at him. He was looking at a lizard in a controlled environment. Parker, do you know what's the most remarkable thing about lizards? Okay. They can grow severed limbs and tails, Peter asked. Exactly. You're looking for a way to fix your arm? Peter asked in confusion. Well, I suppose so, yeah. I'm looking into the anatomy of the lizard to see if we can apply it to the human body. I'm certainly not going to follow the research of Dr. Preston Payne and his clay theory. That's why Gotham City has so many clay monsters. Background on this. Kurt Connors isn't the first dude who missed an arm, tried to experiment on something to repair himself, and ended up becoming a monster in the Cuckoo universe. The first one would be Preston Payne, who first showed up in Batman Year 1, which is not public yet. Batman Year 1 was written in high school, and yet, ironically, I think it's much better than these Spider-Man stories. But Preston Payne was this dude who lost his arm, the scientist who lost his arm, wanted to repair it, looked into creating this clay formula, injected it into himself, and ended up becoming Clayface. One of 3 Clayfaces. There are several Clayfaces in the Cuckoo universe. But he became the first one, and he has the least control over his body as any other of the Clayface people. Every now and then, the second Clayface, Joker would get a sample of the original Clayface and turn it into a bomb and throw it at an Arkham guard while he was escaping, and infected the Arkham guard with the Clayface formula. And that was a second Clayface. The third Clayface was this this fanatic dude who loved Joker and wanted to be part of his Injustice gang he was building at that time, and Joker gave him the pill to become a third Clayface. There are 3 Clayfaces running around. But I knew the similarities between Kurt Connors' origin and the origin I gave Preston Payne were so similar that I had to reference it at some point. So I'm certainly not going to follow the research of Dr. Preston Payne and his clay theory. That's why Gotham City has so many clay monsters. A lot of alliteration in Marvel Comics. Peter Parker, J. Jonah Jameson, Bruce Banner, Otto Octavius, Kurt Connors. Oh yeah, Marvel loves their alliteration. But so does the Superman side of the DC universe, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, Lana Lang. They like their LLs, I guess. Isn't Lex's father Lionel Luthor or something? Well, good luck, Doc, Peter said as he packed up his things. I got, work with the Daily Bugle. Daily Bugle? Don't believe what those fools say about Spider-Man, Parker. That man is a hero, Connors said, at the mentioning of his least favorite New York City news source. Huh, don't worry, Dr. Connors, Peter said, leaving. Connors watched as Peter left, before returning to his studies. Soon he had developed his serum. This might not work, but I just can't give up and not even try, Connors said, injecting the serum into himself. Peter Parker and his girlfriend Betty Brant were eating dinner in one of New York's many small diners. He didn't actually have work today, but he needed some much-needed time to catch up with Betty. This is nice. When we actually get to talk together, Betty sighed. She had been fed up with Peter's constant absences as he was secretly Spider-Man. Yeah, sorry, Peter said, feeling guilty. Homework and lab work, they keep me busy. Too busy. School, Brant clicked her tongue. Hated it. Well, I mean, education's important. Education's not real life. Real life is seeing your father die bleeding out in the streets, thanks to some ideologues who think they're heroes, Brant retorted. Peter curled back. You know, that's what happened to my Uncle Ben, too. You always bring up Uncle Ben, Betty snapped. Peter was hurt and silent as he continued to try to eat his pasta. I didn't remember writing Betty so harshly. The Joker making Clayface reminds me of the old show. That's where the dude is Ethan Bennett. A lot of from the Batman. You have to differentiate the Batman from the Batman animated series from Bruce Timm's days by singing the end of the opening series because it's the Batman. The Batman had a lot of influence on my my kindergarten Batman comic series. It had a very strong influence. Bane was a big red monster. Ragdoll was in it, and you don't see Ragdoll anywhere besides the Batman cartoon show. There was a lot of influence of that in there. After moments of tense silence, Betty finally spoke up. Listen, Peter, I'm sorry. Suddenly, a monstrous lizard man came stomping through the streets of New York City. This was the lizard, the result of Dr. Connor's experiments, an affront to nature. Oh, God! Peter stood up and ran. Peter? What? Brant was left alone and afraid as Peter ran behind an alley. I can't believe you! Soon, Spider-Man came flying in, delivering a kick to the lizard and firing webs at the lizard. Betty Brant got up from her table and walked over to the window of the diner, watching the fight. How about this, Scaly? Some explosive webs, Spider-Man said, firing a ball of web that exploded upon impact, causing the lizard to fall back. Spider-Man squinted at the ID badge and what remained of the lab coat. Dr. Connors? Spider-Man asked in surprise. Get out of here, Spider-Man! New York doesn't need you, Betty yelled from the diner. Betty? What? Spider-Man said under his breath. The subject of Spider-Man hardly came up in their relationship so far. Maybe he was foolish to think an employee at the Daily Bugle would have a positive image of him. Spider-Man's thoughts were cut short when the lizard flung his tail at Spider-Man, sending him flying into a building on the other side of the street. Ah, that's smart, Spider-Man grumbled. However, he jumped back into the fight. The one with the long-haired Joker? Yep. The Joker in the Cuckoo universe wears a jester hat, and his... Let me show you a picture of Cuckoo universe Joker. Because he doesn't look like any other Joker. Because I grew up with the Batman cartoon show and the other Jokers from Batman the Dark Knight and the Jack Nicholson Joker. So I never solidified how Joker should look in my head. So when I was in kindergarten and decided to make these Batman comics, I made up my own design for Joker. And you know how Joker has that, sort of angular face? I don't know why, but, kindergarten school Radix saw his angular face and somehow interpreted it to be a triangle. This is an old design. I later went to dot eyes. He has triangular eyes here. But... Cuckoo Universe Joker... Oh, this is the wrong... There we go. I don't know if you can see that. What if I turned off the light? Now, Cuckoo Universe Joker has a jester cap, a very triangular face, and he has the purple suit, coattail stuff. Most of it's normal Joker until you get to the head, where it's triangular faced and jester hat. The eyes change style. In fact, I think it changes style within the comic itself. Yeah. In fact, he's never drawn with triangular eyes in the comic itself. See, he has dot eyes. I forgot to draw the bells at the top of his jester hat. Now, he changes appearance later on in Batman Year 2. All these are public. The transliterations, the transcriptions of the comics are public, by the way. Batman Year 2, he goes through a redesign. I don't know if I can find it. Most of the time he's in the shadows in Year 2 because you're supposed to believe he's dead, and then the reveal is that he was always alive. But Batman Year 2, he goes through this redesign where he loses the jester cap because I realized the jester hat was retarded. He has squiggly lines to represent hair, and instead of wearing the suit with the coattails, he wears a sort of dark purple trench coat in the style of Jack Nicholson's Joker, I guess. But then he goes through that redesign. But Joker is the only character in the Cuckoo universe with a triangle head. So when you see the Red Hood in Batman Year One, which is a prequel to everything, you see the Red Hood, and he has this triangle head, and then like a semicircle on top of the triangle to show that it's a helmet type thing. It's that jarring. Like, that's Joker. You wonder how he put on the helmet to begin with. Nightclub and I both grew up on that one too. And the VHSs of the animated series. Good old days. Yeah, good old days. The fight was over and Dr. Connors was fought to the point of exhaustion. Having turned back into a human, still missing his right arm, he was arrested by the authorities to receive help. Spider-Man swung over to Betty Brant. "Excuse me, are you Miss Betty Brant from the Daily Bugle?" Spider-Man asked. "Drop dead," Brant replied. "Oh boy, okay," Spider-Man sighed. "Listen, why do you hate me so much?" Betty looked Spider-Man in the eyes for a while. "My father died in that stupid superhero war. A war that was fought by costume freaks like you." "Well, I wasn't around during the—" "I don't care," Brant said with a sigh, looking at Spider-Man. "It's a collective. A collective that includes you now." "I have powers, Betty. I have the responsibility to use them." "Maybe that's true, but I just can't accept you. The world was better before the costume freaks showed up." Spider-Man looked at Betty for a while. "I see," Spider-Man sighed, webbing himself away. Soon, Peter Parker showed up. "Hey, Betty," Parker said nervously. "And just where have you been? You left me. You're a coward," Betty yelled. "Betty, Peter started. "Peter, just stop," Betty said, her shoulders lowering and her eyes closing. When she opened them again, her brown eyes looked directly at Peter. Listen, Peter. We've been dating for about a year now. We've had ups, we've had downs, and between my instabilities and your frequent absences, our arguments, and you just leaving me, I think this is enough. I think we need to leave each other before we end up hurting each other even more." "Betty," Peter started. He was so afraid of losing her before he found what was really in his heart. He just couldn't keep up a relationship as Spider-Man. He couldn't. All right. Okay. You're right," Peter said, looking down at the ground. "I look forward to seeing you at the Bugle, but, just insofar as that. Right." And so Betty walked away, and a part of Peter's heart went with her, even though he knew he needed to walk away as well. So that ends Spider-Man Year 3 on a happy note. I need to write Year 4, 5, 6, and 7. I have a document outlining the major events I want to cover in those years. Spider-Man .txt is that what it's called? Yeah. I'll give you a sneak preview of what the next ones are supposed to be about. Year 4 is 2014 to 2015. It's going to be his senior year in high school. It's going to be dealing with Mysterio, who poses as Spider-Man and turns the public against Spider-Man. There'll be a reference to Spider-Man having once fought Electro. Year 5 is 2015 to 2016. He's a freshman in college at this point at Athens Empire State University. He's going to meet Harry Osborn, Gwen Stacy, and Norman Osborn, and it's going to deal with the Green Goblin. And the event that Peter's going to have to cover as a photographer is the Battle of New York City, in which Bavaria invades from Conquest. Because New York City turns into a battleground then. I think the plot is he's going to go further away from New York City to go to college, but then Bavaria is going to invade, and then there's going to be a battle at New York City, and that's going to draw Spider-Man back to New York City for that issue. Spider-Man Year 6, 2016 to 2017. He is a sophomore in college. Okay, so this is going to be... Something happens and Captain Stacy dies, Gwen Stacy's father. That's going to lead to Spider-Man No More. That's going to be when Spider-Man questions being Spider-Man again. Steve Ditko is turning into a Marvel zombie and coming for you. Yeah, that's accurate. This is when the Bavarian crisis happens. The Bavarian army is an army of robots. Eventually there's a storyline in Conquest where the Nazis hack into the Bavarian soldier computer and make all the Bavarian soldiers go haywire, Terminator style, start killing everyone. And the antimatter war is going to happen in that issue. And then Spider-Man Year 7 will be 2017 to 2018. His junior year in college. It's going to deal with the death of Gwen Stacy, and it's going to be when Mary Jane stops being more of a party girl type character and being a more down-to-earth character. And then Spider-Man will be caught up with the main continuity. Yeah, that's the plan, at least, if I ever get around to writing that stuff. Because I've been really focused on Sins of the Father that I'm currently writing, which actually is good. I am enjoying writing that. I am enjoying reading that. I think it's the best thing I've ever written. But yeah, that was that meme. Wrong scene. There we go. So how are you guys? I don't know how big the lag is on the stream. I think my top teeth are too long. I kept hitting my bottom teeth with my top teeth while reading out stuff, and that hurt. Thank you, Steve Ditko, for turning this stream upside down. Yes, thank you, Steve Ditko, for freaking dying. I am so sorry. Pretty good. What were you even planning to do before that? The thing with chill streams is I don't have a plan until I realize, okay, nothing's happening. I need to think of a... Because previous chill streams, I'm used to chill streams where I have a lot of people in the chat asking questions, and I can keep a conversation going with the chat. Enough topics of conversation come up that I just talk with the chat. Since we dropped Transformers lore, that doesn't happen anymore. But I haven't chill streamed much since I dropped Transformers lore, so I'm not used to it. So after a while, I'm like, okay, nothing's happening. Quick, do something entertaining, and I do something at the spur of the moment. I need to find a way to get a freaking audience back. My social blade is just abysmal. I don't even know how I would make an audience back and still have fun with the content I make. The channel is just undergoing a permanent identity crisis. Are we gonna get a sneak peek at Sins of the Father since you brought it up? Chapter 1 does... I think Chapter 1 has good writing, and Chapter 1 doesn't spoil much, because Chapter 1 is just a retelling of Krypton blowing up. And I think we all know the story of Krypton blowing up. Everyone knows Krypton, so it doesn't spoil much. It's kind of long. It's 20 pages. But I'll take a look. I was actually thinking of releasing Chapter 1 as a tease. But then, the problem is, I really like Chapter 1, and I'm not confident that every chapter after it is going to be as good. So I'm like, if I release Chapter 1 as a tease, people are going to expect that quality. Now, we're in an encoding overload because I'm loading up the file. But Chapter 1's still in draft phase, so there's going to be some weird stuff going on. I haven't gone back and edited it yet. Once I completely edit it, in fact, this might be... No, because I need time to stop and think to reword complete sentences when I edit stuff. So there might be some weird spelling errors sometimes where sentences doesn't make sense. But for the overall structure as a plot, I think it's good. So I also have my own comic/book continuity that I've been writing and revising since the 5th grade. In light of seeing you doing this, I'm wondering if... crap, I'm almost out of words. Wondering if I should share that on my own channel. Share that in Discord via Google Docs, links, and conversations. What do you think? You should definitely follow in Radix footsteps and start putting it out there. Yeah, I think if you're passionate about it, go ahead and do it. It took me a year before I really said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna release this stuff. But the main reason I decided to release this stuff is because I want to improve my writing, and to improve your writing, you have to make it public. Because if you don't, you're just writing for yourself, and that's a weird echo chamber that doesn't work for critique. So I decided, yeah, I'll bite the bullet. I'll release all my terrible stuff just so people can understand the continuity of upcoming new stuff. But yeah, I'd recommend you do it. It's good to have the creative process out there just as a creative exercise, you know? So, let's take a look at... I think Google Docs is still loading in stuff, because I still have encoding overload. Well, not yet. Okay, we're good. So, Chapter 1, The Prophet. Prophet. Each chapter is just a one-word title. Just keeping to that motif. Now, each chapter begins with a quote. I'm not sure if these quotes are going to stay the same, because I'm trying to think of a Bible verse or something. I'll definitely have to do it then. I kind of want to be a writer, so this will be a good first step. Excellent, excellent. I'm trying to go with Bible verse, with a Bible verse that includes no real significance of the... I guess sins of the father has sins in it, and that evokes religious imagery. But really, there isn't much depth to these quotes than just it has the word for the name of the chapter. If I can't find a verse that I think is fine to work with the chapter title, then I'll just redo it, just find general quotes, just famous quotes involving it, and just undo the Bible motif. So this quote might not stay. But each chapter is prefaced with a quote, with the title of the chapter in bold. So here we have Deuteronomy 13, 1 through 3. I don't know how you read, I don't know how you say this. But Deuteronomy 13, 1 to 3. If there arise among you a prophet, or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder come to pass, whereof he spake unto thee, saying, Let us go after other gods, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them, thou shalt not hearken unto the words of that prophet or of that dreamer of dreams. For the Lord your God proveth you to know whether ye love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. So let's give this a try. Hey, what was your father like? And there's very much a motif of fatherhood in this story. Those of you who read the Cuckoo Universe, sometimes it's hard to tell what I'm talking about when I say Cuckoo Universe, because there's the Cuckoo Universe, the huge continuity, and then there's Cuckoo Universe, the series where the title is Cuckoo Universe, the 2018 era story. If you read the story arc Shadows Past from the Cuckoo Universe series, you know that there's a lot of important things regarding fatherhood. Because Batman has a son, it's revealed at the end of that. Spoilers if you haven't read that. There's also another plot thread a very important plot thread that I don't think has been fully released to the public yet, because I don't think I've released Space Wizards Cosmic yet, or Jason Todd Lost Days, but Jason Todd Lost Days and Space Wizards Cosmic both reveal that Jor-El is alive. Because Jor-El came back as a Black Lantern during Blackest Night, and then Jason Todd Lost Days revealed that John Constantine went around with the White Lantern battery. It's never revealed how he got the White Lantern battery, and revived several Black Lanterns as alive again, and one of those is Jor-El, so Jor-El is alive again. And then Space Wizards Cosmic explains what he's been doing in between Blackest Night and today, to explain why Jor-El never went up to Superman and said, Yo, it's me, I'm alive again. So it's revealed in all these stories that haven't been released to the public yet, Jor-El is alive, Superman's dad is alive. Meanwhile, Batman recently figures out that he's a father. So the working title for Sins of the Father was going to be Batman, Superman, Father's Day. But was going to connect a lot of plot threads together and deal with those two major plot points. So Jor-El, Superman and Batman are key players in this. Jor-El is another major character. Let me check a few things. Okay. So we start off with, hey, what was your father like? And then this font I'm going to start using for everything I write, because if you've read my stuff, you know that I like to have just a sentence, this sort of thing, saying the date and the location. I'm going to start putting that in this font, italicized in bold now, just to have a constant, just to have some constancy going on. Krypton, Jor-El's Laboratory, 1985 CE, which is Krypton blows up in 1985 in the Kuka universe. Jor-El looked up from the screen he was looking so deeply into until now. On the screen fluttered data and graphs, all of which indicated his deepest fears. His attention was taken away from his predictions by the voice of his wife, Laura L. "I'm sorry, dear, could you ask that again? I got a bit caught up in my work," Jor-El replied, slightly blushing in embarrassment. Throughout his life, Jor-El had been described by his friends, family, and comrades as callous or perhaps even arrogant, as he was always concerned with himself and his science, showing disregard for other people as anything more than data or statistics was his signature. That changed when Jor-El had met Laura back during his academy days. Laura was the only one that made Jor-El stop and appreciate the beauty in life. And a beauty she was, shining like a beacon inside Jor-El's dark and terribly cluttered lab. Desks were here and there, no proper design whatsoever, making the lab look more like a maze than an actual workspace. On each desk could be found enough research papers and equipment to make the research department in the local university double its assets. And here, in this strange jungle of nerdiness, stood Laura L., in her full body armor, assault rifle resting on her right hip. Indeed, to the confusion of many of his friends, Jor-El had ended up with one of the most high-ranking members of the Kryptonian army, an institution that loved the doctrine of survival of the fittest and that might makes right. Jor-El and his sedentary lifestyle and his mellow outlook on how life should be lived, did not match up with the hardcore training the Kryptonian army loved more than breathing itself. Where did Lays go? He went to buy a Switch. Okay, I know he was missing. He just casually went to buy a Switch. That's nice. Of course you did. Of course you did, Laura replied to her husband. You freaking nerd. Tired of standing, she moved some papers aside and sat on one of the desks. Laura could not provide too much help to Jor-El in his lab. After all, Jor-El was considered the brightest scientist on Krypton. But even still, she could relax for hours in Jor-El's lab, just taking in the calm atmosphere and watching her beloved work in his element. Jor-El nervously watched when Laura moved the papers. After she sat down, she looked back at him. "Your father." I asked what he was like. Jor-El looked away and pondered the question. Well, I suppose he was a lot like you in a way. He definitely was a fighter, Jor-El said. This was less of a proper response and more of him thinking out loud. Well, of course. Seg-El practically made the Kryptonian army. He and the general, Laura replied. But I was wondering what he was like, I don't know, as a person. You are his son. I guess I didn't know him well enough. You know the story, how he got assassinated by the Caparian faction. Jor-El looked down, continuing to search through his memories for anything of value for Laura. I guess he did try to put me through a training regimen once, Jor-El laughed. I was 6 at the time. He gave me some weights and told me to lift. Jor-El laughed at the ridiculousness of the concept of him lifting weights. Laura smiled awkwardly at her husband. Okay, I get it. You're a nerd who doesn't lift weights. Don't laugh at us like that makes us subhuman, Laura thought. Jor-El finally finished his laughter. So yeah, I built a machine that I put my arms in, kind of like an exoskeleton. It helped me lift the weights without actually feeling the weights. You see, if you put enough high-drawn pulleys into the elbow joint, of course you did. One of the most famous warriors in Kryptonian history tried to get you to pick up something, and you just built a device to do it for you. That's the most Jor-El thing I've ever heard, Laura thought to herself, looking at her husband in silent disbelief, even though she was zoning out his chatter about how he made the device in her head. Suddenly, there were 3 loud, rough knocks at the door of the lab that made Jor-El stop talking, and Laura looked behind her at the door. Chief Scientist Jor-El, by the order of General Zod, you are under arrest, came a feminine voice at the door. Laura looked at Jor-El, who had a mildly concerned look on his face. Jor-El glanced at Laura, their eyes meeting. I'll get it, Laura sighed. Just stay right there, Laura told Jor-El, getting up from... Oh god, I spit on the mic. I'm not good at reading out loud, guys, I am sorry. Getting up from the desk and walking over to the door. She pressed a button on the side panel, and the door retracted up into the ceiling. There stood a female Kryptonian officer with 2 lower-ranking Kryptonian soldiers flanking her both sides. The officer had her rifle still on her hip, but the 2 guards had their rifles at the ready. The officer looked surprised at Laura. Officer Laura L., she replied. Officer Faora Ul, Laura replied. What brings you here this fine afternoon? Faora's faded blue eyes looked up at Laura's own vibrant green eyes. Indeed, Laura was a good bit taller than Faora, which reflected the difference between the two. Laura was a true warrior, valuing the training and development the army gave her. Faora had always appreciated the Kryptonian army not for self-development, but for the power the army held in Kryptonian society. she weaseled her way out of training by clinging to the ranks of the higher-ups, who refused to do something as lowly as getting on the ground to do push-ups. Maybe the desire for power over others led to her becoming General Zod's right-hand officer. General Zod has decreed that the doomsday ramblings of the scientist by the name of Jor-El is a threat to the stability of Kryptonian society, Faora answered unwaveringly. His claims that Rao will destroy the planet are slowly becoming popular among Kryptonian society and instilling nihilism. That is no way to build a society. You might have a point if my science wasn't true, Jor-El argued, standing up from his chair and calling over to Faora in the doorway, slowly approaching the group. My analysis on the state of Krypton's core, the discoloration of Rao over the past million years, the patterns of solar flares, etc., it all points to the direction to our end. Krypton will be hit by a solar flare from Rao, and the planet will not be able to withstand it. Your findings are based on pseudoscience and old ways of thinking, Faora retorted, all for your own goals of domination over the minds of society. Pseudoscience? Can't you look around you? Krypton's elderly are dying of heat stroke. We have developed a much stronger resilience to the strong gravity due to the proximity of Rao. Our skin is so much more resilient than our ancestors, Jor-El argued. Nonsense. If that were true, why wouldn't we be invulnerable? Why wouldn't we be able to fly? Faora laughed. We would, Jor-El replied, getting angry at Faora's patronization. That's not the word. Patronization, that's like, when you give... I'm thinking of don't patronize me. What's the zation form of patronize? I don't know, we'll fix it later. Faora quickly stopped laughing and looked at the Kryptonian scientist like he was a madman. We would. We just can't on Krypton because of my findings, Jor-El replied. It was always a weakness of his that whenever he became flustered, his arguing abilities suffered. All you need to do to see that I'm right is to leave Krypton. Find a younger planet, maybe one with a yellow sun. I've even found a star system to launch an expedition to. Not that it matters, of course. Zod has defunded the space program decades ago and doomed us all. That's enough, Faora said. This is good? Like an actual book? Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm jealous. I try to start writing and I just get stuck. Hard to believe. I was praised by my teachers for writing in high school. I haven't written since. When I write seriously, I think I write good. My English professor, she's been trying to make me change my major to English for so long now. That's enough, Faora said. Quickly, she pulled her rifle and struck the back of Laura's head as she was looking back at her beloved. With a loud crunch sound, Laura began to fall, and Faora caught her, turning Laura around to look at Jor-El and holding the rifle against Laura's head. Her other arm holding Laura tight... Let's capitalize Laura here. Holding Laura tight around her neck. Faora turned and spoke into Laura's ear. Officer Laura L., by the power vested in me, I hereby put you under arrest for conspiring with a wanted traitor to the planet. Faora then adjusted her head so that she was looking at Jor-El. Surrender yourself, or your newborn son won't have a mother to grow up with. Please. Just please don't kill her. We don't need any bloodshed, Jor-El pleaded. We won't if you just comply, Faora said. Jor-El looked over at Faora. What? No, I wasn't talking to you, Jor-El said in confusion. What? Faora asked. Laura recollected herself and reached up with her right arm, grabbing Faora's gun-wielding arm and pulling it down at the elbow joint, causing the barrel of the rifle to be pointed at the ceiling rather than Laura's head. Laura leaned her head forward before violently slamming it back, headbutting Faora. This caused Faora to let go and stagger back as Laura stood back up, as she had to bend her knees while being held hostage by the shorter Faora, and looking at the unbalanced Faora, quickly whipping out her rifle and firing an energy pulse into Faora's abdomen. Once falling backwards, the force of the shot caused Faora to hunch forwards, grabbing at the new hole she found in her torso before she fell forwards, landing on the ground with a thud. Laura looked over at her husband. Sorry, beloved, I just couldn't not do that, she said with a smile. Jor-El rolled his eyes. Laura turned back to the two guards, dropping her rifle and firing her arms upwards, jabbing at their necks, knocking them off balance before firing a kick with her left leg to the head of the goon to her right. That kick continued to swing as it returned to the ground, knocking down both of the soldiers. Jor-El, brother, came a voice down the hall. Laura looked down the hall and saw Jor-El's brother Zor-El with his wife Allura and their daughter Kara Zor-El in tow. Jor-El's dog Crypto was also with them. Zor-El, Laura called as Jor-El stepped out of his lab. Soon, the whole family had caught up outside the lab. I just don't have the attention span to write a short story or book. Not even a 2-page paper. Neither do I. I have a lot of attention issues. I just released a video on Commander's Cabin today talking about the only way I can sit down and write for a long time is by listening to music that fits the scene I'm trying to write. it also shortens down. The next couple Commander's Cabin videos are going to be heavily writing focused. Jor-El, the general, Zor-El was trying to catch his breath. Like his brother, Zor-El was an academic type who didn't spend a day in his life doing athletics. Oh, come on, Laura sighed. Eventually, Zor-El caught his breath. The general has ordered the House of El to be arrested, Zor-El cried. Oh yeah? Jor-El asked, looking down at the two unconscious soldiers and their dead officer. Man, I didn't know. Kara started to giggle at Jor-El's sarcasm, but stopped when Allura gave her daughter a look that conveyed the message that now was a time to be serious. Allura then looked at Jor-El. The Kryptonian army is everywhere. What do we do? They say they're even besieging the council since even they started to come over to our side, Allura asked. Jor-El thought. I don't know. For now, how about we go home? Jor-El asked. To the House of El. The members of the House of El looked at each other with concerned looks on their faces. Jor-El's lack of a plan did not inspire confidence. Jor-El noticed the lack of enthusiasm and sighed. Look. Jor-El pointed to the crest of the House of El on his chest. Indeed, everyone wore the crest, and it could even be found on Crypto's collar. Do you know what the crest of the House of El means? Hope, right? Kara answered. Being the youngest member of the family, besides the newborn Kal-El, she had to go through the process of learning about her family history. Exactly, Jor-El smiled at Kara. And it can be all fine and dandy to say that you have hope when things are going well, but you absolutely must keep that hope when things are going badly. What do you think this symbol represents pictographically? Jor-El asked, continuing to point at it. Picto what? Kara asked, confused about the word. The shape. What do you think the shape shows? Jor-El asked. The shape? Well, it's kind of like a winding road, Kara asked. A winding road. Okay, we can work with that. So the road has a starting point and an ending point, right? Jor-El asked Kara. Yeah. What's the shortest length between 2 points? A line? Exactly. Now, wouldn't it be so easy if life was like that? If there was one point and one end point and nothing bad happened in between? Jor-El asked. Kara nodded. Well, there's a legend. The legend says that once upon a time, there were 2 houses. The House of El and the Forgotten House. The Forgotten House had a crest that was exactly that, a straight line from the top right corner to the bottom left. But then Krypton went through some tough times, and you know what happened? What? The Forgotten House couldn't handle the tough times, and they all died anyway. But the House of El? They were used to life not going the way they wanted. See, look at the crest. There's a beginning and an end point. But there are twists and turns along the way. Jor-El followed the S-shaped symbol with his finger. But you know what? Jor-El tapped the end of the S. The crest shows to them that there is always an end point. You can reach your goal if you're willing to go through the times that might not look like you'll reach it. Jor-El smiled at Kara. Of course, that's just a legend. There's no proof that any Forgotten House ever existed, but that doesn't mean we can't learn from it. The House of El is made to endure, Jor-El said. At this point, Kara was smiling, and everyone else seemed to have their spirits lifted back up. Jor-El looked at all of them. Come on, group hug, he laughed. And so, the group came together. Listen, no matter what, as long as the House of El is together, we can overcome anything. Suddenly, explosions shook the hallways, and the group hug ended. Jor-El rushed over to the window to see a Kryptonian tank opening fire on pro-Jor-El protesters. Jor-El looked back at the group. Come on now, let's go see Cal. Let me just check the chat. Sometimes it doesn't update. Coolio. By the way, Batman Year 4 #1, which is not public yet, gave more backstory to Jor-El. It explained that General Zod was the official general of Krypton, and the army had a lot of power. Jor-El said that the planet was going to die, and everyone sort of rallied behind him and realized, hey, this scientist is right. Zod got jealous and launched a coup to attack the council and to arrest Jor-El. And it's just sort of hinted at in a scene that's frankly more of a joke scene than a serious scene. This chapter sort of elaborates on that. And it also explains that during the coup, a solar flare happens that causes most of Zod's forces to be destroyed. And then Jor-El finds Zod, sends him to the Phantom Zone. And that's what the readers expected to know at this point if they read previous books. And that book isn't public right now, so you wouldn't have known that yet. So, the House of El. Lara held the baby Kal-El in her arms, softly singing to the young baby. Kal-El had become upset at the sounds of gunshot. Kal-El had become upset after the sounds of gunshots had woke him up. When the elves reached Jor-El's home, they had found it occupied by Kryptonian soldiers. Lara made short work of them, but couldn't do so quietly. Jor-El spoke with his brother and his family at the doorway. "If we're all here, we're all in one place for Zod to kill us," Jor-El said. "You're right. Kara, Allura, Kara, Allura, and I will go back to my home." "Jor-El, please stay safe," Zor-El replied. "I have Laura to keep me out of trouble," Jor-El smiled. Zor-El looked sadly at his brother before turning around and facing the door. He looked over at his wife and daughter. "Come on, let's go now," Zor-El said, opening the door. "Stay safe on your way home. Be careful. Don't use the main roads," Jor-El called out as his brother and family walked away. Zor-El gave a wave back at Jor-El. Once his extended family was out of sight, Jor-El closed the door and walked over to his wife and Cal, kissing Laura on the cheek. What are we going to do, Jor?" Laura sighed, looking at her baby. "This isn't a world I want Cal to grow up in." Laura soon found that you should be careful about what you wish for, as you just might get it, as the temperature rose significantly as the soft red glow of the sun coming through the windows turned into a deep blood red. The ground began to shake. "Oh, Rao," Laura cried out, using the Kryptonian's god in vain, as the very sun that was named after him had gone supernova. Kal-El's cries grew louder. Everywhere across Krypton, the entire population was in a state of panic and desperation. Except Jor-El. He simply stood there and sighed. Jor-El turned Laura around, still holding Kal-El. "Laura, I need you to look at me," Jor-El said calmly, but Laura was still freaking out, her eyes darting across the room as she trembled, and tears began to form. "Laura, please, for Cal!" Jor-El yelled. This was a rare occurrence, as Jor-El was never known to yell. Laura heard her husband and slowly regained composure. "Can you calm down and understand me?" Laura gave a tearful nod. "Okay, I need you to take Cal down to the basement, and we'll..." "Ah, crap." Jor-El realized. Ever the Doomsday Prepper, Jor-El had originally planned to escape to the Phantom Zone. During his scientific research, Jor-El discovered a dimension that was similar to space, and that it had no gravity. However, one had no need to eat or needed to maintain any bodily need in this dimension, and simply existed. Jor-El had dubbed it the Phantom Zone, and kept it a secret from the Kryptonian government. It was a terrible existence, but it was better than death. At least, he thought so. Indeed, while Jor-El had planned to use the Phantom Zone to escape the death of Krypton, he still kept wavering as to whether or not that was a viable option, or if it was actually a fate worse than death. But regardless, Jor-El remembered he left the Phantom Zone projector at his lab. "Laura, just get Cal to the basement. I'll be back." "What? No, Jor-El, don't you dare leave me," Laura started sobbing. "I need my warrior here, okay?" Jor-El pleaded. "Can you be a warrior? A true Kryptonian warrior stands strong and proudly, even in the face of death, right?" Laura regained her composure once more, taking deep breaths before looking her husband in the eye with fire reignited. "Yeah, go get your toy, you nerd," Laura said, giving Jor-El a shaking but ever-present smile. Jor-El looked at her proudly before kissing her goodbye. As he walked out the door, Laura called back at him. "And if you don't come back, I'll just be a ghost and haunt your butt or something, Jor-El." Laura's words of endearment energized Jor-El as he stepped outside. That was perfect, because if he had not heard her words, he would have been demoralized the moment he stepped outside and felt the heat rush over him. The sky was indeed a blood red, and the planet appeared to be cracking under his very feet. Fires could be seen across the nearby city, and Jor-El saw the tower that contained his laboratory. "All right," he said to himself, "for Cal." And so, Jor-El took his first steps to the end of the world. House of El. Jor-El was slowly approaching his home, which was only a few roads ahead. He held the Phantom Zone projector in his arms, but his pace was much slower than it was before. The terrible sights he saw in the city were enough to make anybody go insane, assuming they had enough empathy to strangers. Jor-El, of course, did not. However, the next thing he saw made him stop in his tracks. Laying in the pathway leading to the House of El was a man in full military armor on the ground. He looked up at Jor-El. "Jor-El," the weak man said. He was dying of rapid dehydration. The heat was too much for him. Jor-El recognized the officer as General Zod. Immediately, Jor-El pulled out a rifle he had taken off the body from a soldier he found in the city. Apparently, the soldier had begun shooting people at random after the end of the world had begun, before turning the rifle against himself. "You. Only you would do something so foolish during this time," Jor-El screamed. By the way, some of this dialogue comes straight from Batman Year 4, number 1. Like, only you would do something... Like, this came from Batman Year 4, number 1. So there is some continuity references going on here. Jor-El screamed. He was bewildered by the stupidity Zod had. The hatred Zod had come to embody. Perhaps the scream had come from a place of betrayal. After all, Jor-El and Zod were once comrades. Zod had reached the point where he could no longer speak and simply looked up at Jor-El with his dull blue eyes. Jor-El's hand trembled on the trigger before he finally stopped and sighed. Just come on, Jor-El said, grabbing Zod by the arm and dragging him back to his house. Entering the home, Jor-El didn't see Lara or Cal anywhere. They must have gone to the basement, Jor-El thought to himself. He laid Zod down on the couch in their den, pacing back and forth. You're too dangerous to be kept alive while I'm working on trying to figure out the Phantom Zone, but... Jor-El looked at Zod, who was slowly regaining strength. I can't just kill you. I can't. Jor-El looked at the Phantom Zone projector. Well, he sighed, maybe it is a fate worse than death. And that's what you deserve. Soon, Jor-El set up the tripod to the Phantom Zone projector. The Phantom Zone projector was situated upon. Jor-El pointed his rifle at Zod and walked him over to a wall on the other end of the Phantom Zone projector. Zod glared at Jor-El. So are you mad that you were wrong and that I was right? Jor-El asked, smugly. Zod fell silent for a while. Well, you're flaunting your success even as our world dies. Remind me, which one of us is a madman here? Zod asked. Jor-El looked at Zod for a moment, thinking about what he had said. Finally, he realized that they had no time for a debate. As we speak, my prediction is coming true. Krypton will explode in 20 minutes. Just be gone, Jor-El said as he fired up the Phantom Zone projector. Suddenly, Zod whipped out a pistol and aimed it at Jor-El. What? Jor-El said in confusion. Suddenly, from behind a corner came Krypto, who saw his owner under attack. Krypto lunged and clamped his jaw on Zod's gun-wielding arm. Ah, you stupid! Zod screamed at Krypto. Suddenly, the Phantom Zone projector went off. Ah, no! Krypto! Jor-El cried, but it was too late. In a flash, General Zod and Jor-El's dog were trapped in the Phantom Zone. Jor-El fell to his knees. Krypto, he said quietly in despair. Jor-El, a defeated man, slowly went down the steps into the basement where he found his wife holding his son. Jor-El's basement was just as cluttered as his laboratory, though the clutter was largely condensed around the walls. Jor-El tended to work on larger projects in his basement. For example, there was a large, round object that was concealed with a rag for protective purposes, just by Lara and Cal. Jor-El, you're back, Lara said happily before she noticed Jor-El's expression. What's wrong? Jor-El looked at Lara. I imprisoned General Zod in the Phantom Zone. He was trying to attack me, and Krypto saved me, and they both ended up in there. Oh no, Krypto, Lara said, shocked. Wait, Zod? If Zod's in there, you do realize that we can't use the Phantom Zone to escape. He'd kill us both. I know. I'm sorry, I just can't kill people like you can, Jor-El said ashamedly. Lara frowned at her husband. I love you for that, you know, Lara asked, walking closer to her husband, using her free hand to wipe Jor-El's tears away. Jor-El looked at Lara with a glint of gratefulness in his eyes. Jor-El walked away from his wife, beginning to pace the room. Come on, Jor-El, think, he said to himself. Suddenly, he received a call on his communications device. Annoyed, Jor-El looked at the device and was surprised by the caller. Zor-El? Jor-El activated the link. Jor-El, this is Zor-El. I did it. We launched the rocket. Zor-El's voice came over the communicator. The sound of crying, the most tearful crying Jor-El had ever heard, could be heard in the background. The rocket? Jor-El echoed. Indeed, Jor-El and Zor-El were both proponents of Krypton's space program that Zod had defunded. The two wanted to try creating their own private space program, but neither of them were rocket scientists. They started with prototypes small enough to hold a child before they gave up. To Earth, Zor-El replied. When Jor-El had made his discovery that Krypton was doomed, Zor-El and Jor-El theorized their Plan B if the Phantom Zone option failed. Zor-El and Jor-El theorized their Plan B if the Phantom Zone option failed. After all, Zor-El was against the Phantom Zone option to begin with. If they couldn't save their families, they would save their children by sending them out in space to a planet Jor-El had located called Earth, where humanoids like Kryptonians lived. I'm just calling to remind you and to check in. It's something that is very difficult to do, let me tell you. Were the launch codes not working? Jor-El asked. No, not like that. It's just hard sending your bundle of joy out into space on a rocket, you know, Zor-El said. Tearfully, Jor-El looked over at Lara, who couldn't hear the conversation. What? Lara asked, confused. She then noticed Jor-El's expression. Jor-El? Honey, what's wrong? Thank you, Zor-El. We had a good run, Jor-El said into his communicator. Yeah, we did, Zor-El sighed. With that, Jor-El cut the line. Lara, you will absolutely hate what I have to say, but Jor-El removed the tarp from the massive object in the basement, revealing a rocket. Jor-El walked over to the console next to the rocket and began to input codes that caused part of the ceiling to open out into the backyard of the House of El. Jor-El, what's this? The rocket won't fit both of us, but it will fit Kal-El, Jor-El said, grabbing an information crystal that had a backup of Krypton's knowledge on it and putting it into the rocket. He also opened up a compartment and placed the Phantom Zone projector. It'll fit Cal? Lois started. Jor-El couldn't help but remember the screams and cries he heard on the communicator that must have come from Allura. Jor-El continued to look at the console, inputting coordinates for Earth. The Phantom Zone isn't an option, but Cal can grow up on Earth. Heck, he'll probably be their hero if my power thesis is true, Jor-El said. He heard silence. After a while, he looked over at Laura, expecting to see her outraged. Instead, he saw her with a slight smile, tears welling up in her eyes as she looked at her husband. Jor-El, thank you. You've given Cal a chance, she said before she began to break down. Jor-El rushed over to her and hugged her, with the baby Kal-El in between them. I have a crystal with all the information about us and about Krypton on it. All he has to do is bring it into contact with water, and he'll have his own fortress. He'll never be alone. I'm sure he'll find a nice couple to take him in. He'll make friends. He'll live, Jor-El said quietly to his beloved. Laura and Jor-El watched as Cal's rocket fired out beyond Krypton's atmosphere, beginning its short journey to Earth. Though Krypton was light years away from Earth, Zor-El and Jor-El had equipped their rockets with warp drives to make the trip much faster. Unknown to both of them, however, Kara's ship would run into an asteroid and make her arrival on Earth much later than Cal's, but that didn't matter right now. Soon, Jor-El and Laura El were alone together in the basement of the House of El, holding each other in their arms as the sky turned a darker shade of red. Hey, Laura started. Yeah? You remember how we first met? No, Jor-El said. Laura looked over at Jor-El with a look of disbelief. Oh, come on, she said, playfully hitting him. What? I really don't remember. In the academy, math class. I remember the professor being an idiot. Of course you do. Do you remember when Gal-Un knocked your papers off your desk? You had been working on your own formula for something for quite a while. Oh, you noticed that? I sat beside you and saw your notes looked nothing like mine. Imagine how panicked I was. But yeah, Gal-Un knocked your papers off your desk since, well, Gal-Un was always kind of a jerk. I don't remember anyone by that name. I got up and threw my spear from training class at his face, knocked him down flat. Daring. After I dealt with him, I looked back at you and, well, I guess I kind of yelled at you. I asked what kind of self-respecting Kryptonian lets people push them around like that, and the kind of Kryptonian who doesn't care what the common rabble thinks about him. Yeah, that's exactly what you said. No way, really? You haven't changed, Jor, Laura laughed. But I had been living my life trying to live up to the standard for being a Kryptonian warrior that, well, I guess I had been a drone. Of course, being a warrior was still my dream, but I didn't consider the whys of it. At first, I did it because that's what people respected. And when I met you, I realized that I wanted to do it to protect the little people, for my own reasons, not society's. You think out there, Jor-El. People think you're weird, but, well, they're right, but I like that, Laura said, as the final cracks began to form on Krypton. As Jor-El predicted, the core of Krypton groaned from the strain of the supernova. The core of Krypton groaned from the strain the supernova sun put on it. I love you, Laura. You're a nerd, Jor-El. With a final burst, Krypton exploded into pieces. Chunks of crust were sent flying every which way as magma burst from every orifice. The bodies of the two lovers were shattered, and as Laura was incinerated by a burst of lava, Jor-El's corpse had every bone in his body shattered and limb torn off as it flew off into the burning atmosphere. What little skin and clothes remained preserved in the vacuum of space from any threat of... What little skin and clothes remained preserved in the vacuum of space from any threat of decay. Thankfully, for the both of them, the black, the darkness, the end came well before the explosion, and from their perspective, they died in each other's arms. The Ruins of Krypton, 2011 CE. So this goes back to Blackest Night, where Jor-El came back as a Black Lantern. Bones. Flesh. Blood. Drifting in the ruins of Krypton was a mass of indistinguishable parts of something that was once a being. A man who drove himself into introversion by trying to stop the incident that ended up killing him anyway. A man who lived. A man who loved. A man who died. Stretching out from light years away came a small, little black ring. It was a beautiful piece of equipment, the distant stars reflecting off the ebony-like material. A funny thing, stars. Across the galaxy, life forms look up into the night sky and see the stars as a symbol of the unknown. But those small lights come from far away, and light has a set time for travel. Many of those stars have been sucked up into a black hole or collapsed upon themselves. Many of those stars we see in the night sky are already dead, and what we see are the last glimpses of their life. The symbol of the unknown is death. And so this ring, sent from some god of death or another, came seeking out one that would make the deepest emotional impact on the last son of Krypton. That last son's father. Navigating with extreme precision, the ring found itself on the finger of one of the arms still attached to the body, though the hand was connected by only a few remaining ligaments. Jor-El of Krypton, rise. The eye sockets of a corpse that were once empty vacancies were filled with a blinding light. Not a light that inspired hope, but one that instilled dread. Slowly, pieces of matter that previously would not be obvious to be once parts of the body gravitated towards the body, slowly and surely repairing in a demonic fashion. The very veins themselves were as black as ink, and the skin a dull gray. The clothes around the man repaired themselves as well as part of the constructs of the ring, and in a spot on the chest where the crest of the House of El, the symbol of hope, would be the mark of the Black Lanterns. A wild roar, Jor-El was reborn. With a wild roar, Jor-El was reborn. But not the mind of Jor-El. For his mind, it was all a garble of fuzzy noise. And here we see the garble of fuzzy noise. Just the words, feed, feed, kill, kill, eat, eat, feed, feed, spread, spread, feed, eat, kill, spread, death, 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 feed, feed, kill, spread, kill, leave, find, food, 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 feed, where, feed, kill, kill, death, food, feed, Krypton, feed, food, eat, death, 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 kill, 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 feed, eat, Kal-El, where, Earth, 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 leave, go, Earth, Earth, kill, eat, feed, go, find, spread, kill, find, hearts, Laura, no, feed, kill, eat, hearts, Kal-El, eat, Kal-El, Earth, go, feed, eat, kill, spread, death, Necron, death, eat, kill, space, moon, earth, sky, blue, sun, dark, fly, find, kill, eat, death, eat, find, kill, eat, Kal-El, sun, no, sun. We do a little wordplay because we have sun with an O, then no, then with a U, sun. Death, eat, kill, die, eat, hearts, Necron, eat, earth, Metropolis, Kal-El, sun, eat, found, sun, no, found, food, found, Kal-El, found, and then just in sort of like broken letters, Kal-El, no, you have to run, I can't. So this paragraph sort of represents, this is the thought process of a Black Lantern right now. This is Jor-El's mind. He has lost all sense of self, but every now and then you see something like Laura pop up. And then usually rejected immediately, no. Like, don't attach yourself to the previous mind, you're a Black Lantern now. In Blackest Night, Superman's just flying around the sky over the ocean when suddenly Jor-El pops up behind him. And he's like, my son, you may not remember me. And Superman's like, oh god, that's my father. It's as a zombie. And we never actually see their fight. But we assume something bad happened to Jor-El. Because Superman shows up fine later on. So this sort of, like, Space, moon, earth, sky, blue. He's arrived at Earth at that point. And this is where he's found Superman. And then, like, Kal-El, no, you have to run, I can't. And then that small shard of thoughts are gone again. Back to the Black Lantern stuff. Found food, death, kill, eat, strong, pain, pain and hot are supposed to represent his fight with Superman, because Superman's really strong. Strong's in here too, strong. Superman's hitting him with enough force that even the Black Lantern's registering pain. And he's hitting with his heat vision that even the Black Lantern's feeling the heat. Strong, pain, death, eat, find, kill, pain, kill, eat, kill. And he still has these impulses to eat. But every now and then it's interrupted by pain because Superman's putting the pain on him in this fight. Pain, sun, no, food, Kal-El, eat, water. I think the water is, at this point, they're fighting over Metropolis Bay. Pain, death, kill, pain, kill, stop, I can't, Kal-El, have, no, you, to, run, I, kill, pain, eat, pain, strong, hearts, Necron, kill, hot, Krypton, Laura, no, kill. And so the implication here is that he's been hit by the heat vision, and it just reminds him, the heat reminds him of Krypton, and that makes him remind him of Laura. And then, no, kill, pain, eat, pain, spread, pain, death, pain, sun, food, pain, strong, hearts, pain, sun, food, feed, pain, kill, pain, eat, pain, sun, food, feed, pain, kill, pain, eat, pain, sun, food, feed, pain, kill, pain, eat, pain, hope. And we have this little hope road, and it's talking about his, like, analogy used for the House of El crest together. And again, if it goes back to that quote where he hugs them all and says, as long as we're together, there's nothing we can overcome. No, food, can't remember, pain, don't, water, hungry. And the water, at this point, he's been dunked into Metropolis Bay. And then just, I'm sorry. My favorite page. My God, do you have to read every single word? I think so. It's an interesting way to communicate his thoughts in text form. For sure, but hot dang. I'm surprised you didn't mess up reading. I'm pretty sure I did. I was just skimming through it. I just wanted to make sure that I got the, like the little small parts, like whenever Laura popped up. I'm just trying to explain the concept behind this sort of thought process as a Black Lantern. It's nothing but this gray, phasey stuff. Earth, Gotham City, 2011 CE. It replayed in Jor-El's head. The last moments he remembered. I love you, Laura. You're a nerd, Jor-El. He had closed his eyes, there in his Krypton basement. Then he opened them again. What? Jor-El looked around, and this is a scene from Jason Todd Lost Days, where it's revealed, basically there was a plot hole where Jason Todd died, came back as a Black Lantern, then died again, and then next you see him, he's doing just fine as a living person. So I had to write a whole mini-series called Jason Todd Lost Days to explain what happened. And I basically came up with this. John Constantine somehow has the White Lantern battery. It's never explained. It will be explained in Sins of the Father. But John Constantine has this White Lantern battery and is combining with magic to revive certain characters that were zombies, that were Black Lanterns in Blackest Night. And that's what this scene is, only more elaborate. What? Jor-El looked around. He was in what appeared to be a dark cave. Inside the cave were 8 capsules connected by tubes to a glowing white device. Standing beside the small white device was a dirty blonde-haired man in a trench coat, holding his hand palm forward at the capsules. As if it were projected from his hand itself was what appeared to be some sort of pentagram magical projection. Obviously, there was some magic at work here at the man's as the man's trench coat was blowing back from the force. There was no natural wind in the cave. Jor-El found himself inside one of these translucent capsules. He looked down and felt himself. He was wearing the clothes he wore the day he died, the crest of the House of El still on his chest. Confused, Jor-El looked around at the other people in the capsules. One man was in what appeared to be rags with some sort of pumpkin being worn on his head. That would be the first Scarecrow, who died in Batman #1, which is public. The death of Scarecrow is the worst thing I ever made the worst plot point I ever made as a kindergartner. There was another young man wearing some sort of cape and cowl with 2 R's on his chest. That would be Jason Todd, who at this point is under the alias of Red Robin. There was a blonde girl wearing a green and yellow uniform, but she had an R symbol on one side of her chest, in the same font as the young man next to her. That would be Stephanie Brown, who was Robin at this time. There was one woman looking outside her capsule, pounding on it and screaming. Her screams were silent through the glass. Next to her was a capsule with what appeared to be some beheaded young girl, surely the youngest of all the captive people. Kathy Kane and Bet Kane were Batwoman and Batgirl from Batman Year One, an aunt and niece sort of duo. They were inspired by Batman after Batman rescued them, so they decided, hey, we'll become Bat people too. And Kathy became Batwoman, Bet Kane became the first Batgirl. At the end of Batman Year One, they both freaking die. Because I had to explain why they never showed up after Batman Year One. Blackest Night, they come back as zombies. The Batgirl, who's Cassandra Cain at that time period, throws a bat grenade at Betty Kane, who's the most creepiest Black Lantern ever made. Throws a bat grenade, gets stuck in her eye socket, and blows up and takes off her head. So that's why she is beheaded right now. And Kathy Kane is beside her, sort of screaming that her little niece is a decomposed headless body. What in the name of Rao is happening here? Jor-El thought to himself. Looking to his left, there are 2 capsules. One of them had a purple humanoid who was obviously a different species, which would be Sinestro. And beyond that was a cyborg, half man, half machine. On his chest was the crest of the House of El, which would be Cyborg Superman. Wait, hold on, how are you allowed to wear that? Jor-El yelled in anger. Of course, the cyborg wearing the logo could not hear him. The cyborg and the alien were looking beyond Jor-El to the beheaded young girl. What? Jor-El asked, as he too turned around and saw that the girl was regenerating her body. Jor-El watched, mouth agape, as the girl was complete. Slowly and carefully, she opened her eyes and looked around in shock. She then saw the woman next to her and called out to her excitedly, tears forming in her eyes. The man in the trench coat let out a desperate smile for just one moment before composing himself. The man picked up a microphone from the ground and turned it on. A loud screeching sound could be heard in each capsule, which hurt everyone's ears. Jor-El covered his ears. Ah! Jor-El reacted. He looked up and saw that there was a speaker at the top of the capsule. Soon, the loud screeching died down as the microphone adjusted. The man in the trench coat tapped the microphone a few times before he spoke. Blimey, what a wake-up call, eh? He chuckled. Oh, don't look at me like that. At least your ears actually work now. Until I came and dragged you sorry lot from the alleyways or drainage pipes or whatever, you were going to be worm food. The man looked at the purple alien. Except you. The White Lantern power battery here kind of brought you to me. The man gestured to the small white device. I'm John Constantine, by the way. Bona fide magic bad A. The first person who calls me a wizard gets something shoved up there, and then I have to censor myself, and it ain't gonna be me wand. Constantine chuckled at the joke. Nobody else was laughing, but he didn't notice, or he didn't care. So here's the deal. The world just kind of went through a debacle. Constantine stopped. Ah, by world I mean this one, Earth. He looked at the purple alien, though it was actually Jor-El who was the most surprised. Earth? Our debacle came in the form of people coming back from the dead with these little old Black Lantern rings. A lot of people got their hearts ripped out and sacrificed to their Lord Necron or something. Well, I don't know why, but the White Lantern power battery here wanted me to find you lot and bring you back. Constantine shrugged. I mean, I'm not sure why. I guess it's like they always say, the lantern works in mysterious ways, yeah? Constantine laughed. So yeah, a while ago you guys were rotting flesh. Welcome back to the land of the living. With that, Constantine snapped his fingers and the capsules disappeared, with everyone landing on the ground on their feet. The little girl immediately ran up and hugged the woman beside her. Aunt Kathy, it was so dark and cold. Where are we? Are we going back to Batman? She cried. Going back to Batman. Don't make me laugh. The cowled man with the 2 R's spoke. Jason, the girl in the green and yellow spoke. Jason looked the girl up and down. Are you kidding me? Another Robin. Please, Jason said. He looked over at Constantine. Yo, wizard, let's talk. Wizard? Did the speaker in your box not work, lad? Constantine laughed before walking over to Jason. The girl in the red, green, and yellow looked down for a moment, conflicted. This scene, I'm trying to fix a lot of continuity errors that exist in the Cuckoo universe. Like, why were those people chosen to be revived? The answer? The White Lantern just said, why not? How did Sinestro get there? Everyone in that group died on Earth, except Sinestro died on Oa. It explains that the White Lantern just pulled Sinestro over and brought him to Earth anyway. Stephanie Brown is sort of hesitant to go back to Batman, and we see in Shadows Past, one of the arcs in the Cuckoo Universe series, that she just wanted time to herself. The Constantine TV show got canned too soon. I never actually watched the Constantine TV show. From what I understand, it was a bit different from the comics, but again, I didn't actually watch it. I like seeing Edward Kenway. That's true, he does sort of look like Edward Kenway in real life. Oh, well, I have better things to do than stay here, the man in the pumpkin said. Nobody kills me and gets away with it. The man began to cackle before leaving the cave. Oh, Gotham City. Nice to respawn so close to home. Jor-El turned to face the cyborg that wore the crest of the House of El. But by the time he finished turning around, the man left in the blink of an eye with super speed. The purple humanoid left as well, though at a normal speed. I'm going to need to give Jordan a visit about my ring problem, he muttered as he left. At this point, Hal Jordan has Sinestro's Yellow Lantern ring. Jor-El watched as he left. Jor-El looked over at Constantine. He had so many questions, but it appeared Constantine had his hands full of Jason. Some time passed, and finally Constantine was alone. The thing here is that Jason Todd will set up this thing with Constantine that every time Jason dies, it's up to Constantine to bring him back to life. They just sort of make this contract. But uh, Jor-El approached him. Excuse me, Constantine? Jor-El asked. Constantine looked up at the Kryptonian. What? Well, I guess I'd ask how long I was dead, but you might not know that, Jor-El has said. Sorry, mate, I don't know. Jor-El looked himself over. He found it hard to believe that he had died. He had died. Krypton. Suddenly, Jor-El became frantic. He looked at Constantine. And, what happened to Krypton? Is that where I died? Jor-El asked. Krypton? I dragged your body out of the Metropolis docks, but if Superman is to believe, Krypton blew up, mate, Constantine said. Jor-El, in his frantic mindset, didn't even catch the mentioning of the word Superman. Krypton blew up? Jor-El touched his chest. Then that actually did happen. I lost everything. Krypto. Kara. Zor-El. Kal-El. Laura. Her words echoed in Jor-El's mind and her voice. You freaking nerd. Yeah, nerd, jeez. You freaking nerd. Jor-El, thank you. People think you're weird, but, well, they're right. But I like that. You're a nerd, Jor-El. Before he knew it, tears were falling from Jor-El's face in a solid stream as he felt his face strained to cry for the first time in over 20 years. Constantine looked shocked. Oh, blimey, look, mate, I'm sorry. You seem like a good bloke, Constantine was never good at consoling others. Jor-El turned around and ran. He ran, and he ran, and he ran, almost tripping, his white cape fluttering behind him. Finally, he came to the exit of the cave, and in the distance, he could see a massive city with a skyline that, in any other moment, Jor-El would consider to be a beautiful feat of engineering. But Jor-El could barely see it with the tears in his eyes. Jor-El stopped running and cried, and cried. His cries turned into wails as he finally fell down on his knees. Shoulders slumped. The wails turned into screams. He was a scientist who knew the world was going to end, and his greatest failure was that he couldn't do anything about it. And now his family was dead. Listen, no matter what, as long as the House of El is together, we can overcome anything. Jor-El screamed up at the night sky, a beautiful night filled with stars that were, in reality, dead and long, long gone. Surely one of those distant, vaguely glittering objects in the sky was Krypton in its glory days. Some people love life, some people hate life, and some people are hated by life. Darn you, Jason Todd, not dying. Yeah, I got some goosebumps. Oh, did you really? But that was chapter 1 of the upcoming release. Dang, that was... Oh, thank you. I tried. I really tried to put effort in this. I'm trying to put a lot of effort into this. The Dreadcore miniseries is my first, testing ground to see if I could bring in themes, and I think I'm doing a good job at it, but I just don't like limiting myself to the 6-page, 4-issue concept. It doesn't allow me to do the artistic stuff I want to do that drags on a bit. So, Sins of the Father is the next stage, where I'm trying to write a good story with serious themes, where I'm not limited by page number, but I'm doing it with fanfic characters that aren't original characters. I'm going to move on to... What it's all going to lead up to is an Infinity War type story, where it's going to be the entire Cuckoo universe that I'm going to try to write really well. And then from that point on, I think I'm going to try to be a more original character-based stories in the Cuckoo universe. That was a long chapter, but very good. Thank you. I'm aiming for this being the average length of each chapter. There's 10 chapters and 1 epilogue that I have outlined. But that's the goal. Oh, man. Reading that was actually a pain. Oh, no. There we go. So that was your sneak peek. I need water. Any tips? Any tips for improvement, I guess, is the word? Any specific things you liked as well, so I know what I did good specifically? Quite the peak, indeed. And while I wait for chat to catch up, I'm gonna take a little break real quick. we have returned with some ships. I like the use of quotations. I'm a sucker for that. Yeah, I'm a real sucker for that stuff too. That's why I use it. My one fear is overusing it. I don't think of any critiques that seem good to me. Well, thank you. I do think this is the best thing I've ever written. And personally, not to sound arrogant, I think this is my favorite story of Krypton blowing up. Like, my favorite retelling of that story. Like, before that, Man of Steel was my favorite version. The movie. Man of Steel sort of gets... I don't like making Jor-El like this super warrior that just shoots everyone like this action hero. He's a scientist, the most brilliant scientist on Krypton that determined the planet was going to blow up. He shouldn't be just like freaking Ramboing it through Krypton, jumping from heights and grabbing onto a strange alien creature. This Jor-El I want to make more almost too cold. And he'll never... I think right now in DC... Not right now, like maybe 6 months ago, there was this plot line where there was Jor-El did survive and Jor-El was evil. I don't like the idea of an evil Jor-El. I like the idea of a flawed Jor-El. That's why I have him a bit callous and a bit low on empathy. And that will be a character flaw that will kind of drive a lot of Sins of the Father in the modern day. But he'll never be a full villain. Chapter 2 is actually... I'm halfway through writing Chapter 2. There's a lot of humor in Chapter 2 feels like the opening scene to Avengers Age of Ultron, where you have a group of heroes storming a fortress in the snow, making quips all along the way. It's the Bat family, Batman and all his sidekicks, plus Wonder Woman, storming the Temple of Shadows, which is where the League of Shadows is based in Canada. Because apparently, however young I was when I saw Batman Begins, I saw that the whole Ra's al Ghul stuff happened in the snow, and at that point in my life, I thought Canada was the only place with snow, so I deduced it must be in Canada. But because of that, the League of Shadows are based out of Canada and not some, East Asian place. Definitely the most interesting I've ever read about the death of Krypton. I agree. You gave a lot of depth that almost made me cry. Oh, thank you. That actually means a lot. You have a lot more character to the characters you usually see dying then cut to... Yeah, exactly. I had what I wanted to do with, let's see. Whoa. Okay, sure. This one, I guess. What I wanted to do with that chapter, with the death of Krypton, is what I wanted to do with... I don't have to get it. I can just talk about it. I realized that grabbing the comic would be... I would be holding it awkwardly. There's a story called Batman Zero Year. And Batman Zero Year... I said Zero Year kind of autistic, didn't I? Just said Zero Year. Batman Zero Year... It's kind of a weak story, but it does retell the death of the Waynes. And they really characterize Thomas and Martha Wayne. And when I was first reading it, I cried when they got to the point where Thomas and Martha Wayne got shot. Now, when you make me cry for two characters that technically have been dead since 1937, that's when you know you really put thought and development into these characters. I really like that flashback part of Batman Zero Year. So, there's a Batman story that made me cry over the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne. It's a tragedy. It drove Batman. That tragedy should be one of the tragic events looking through the continuity. Not just tragic because, the story says it's tragic, and you see it impact Bruce. The readers themselves should feel that tragedy. Krypton freaking blew up! So there has to be... And it's a tragic moment. People, they sent their only child out into space. It's a tragic moment that I think needs to be developed more. So that was my main goal with Chapter 1. Also, to fix some continuity errors. Crypto is a dog from Krypton, and he had appeared in the Kooky universe before, but no explanation was given to why Krypto was there, and I thought it would just be freaking stupid if I ever wrote a story telling the tale of the destruction of Krypton, And they it's like they go to their lab. There are like 3 rockets lined up. Like Kal-El goes in this one, boom. Supergirl goes in this one, boom. Let's just stick the dog in here, sure, why not? Like, I thought that would just be stupid. So the thing is, I'm going to hint at a future story where the first Superman #1, which I believe is public from my elementary school years, involves Zod breaking through the Phantom Zone and attacking Metropolis. The implication is going to be that Crypto came through as well. And that's going to be more solidified through dialogue in future chapters. Seriously, if you can make Batman's parents dying not boring, you've done something. I know, it's a great story. And here, you made the sending off of their children such a heavy moment. It was going to be heavier. There is a deleted... You guys want to hear the deleted scene from Chapter 1? Because it just felt too awkward. Because it was about the launch of Kara from the rocket to Earth. Of Supergirl. And I wrote it out, like, it was like several, it was a whole section. You saw how the little Superman symbols divided things into sections. It was a whole section on this. And, it just felt too weird because the entirety of this story is told, the entirety of this chapter is told from Jor-El's perspective. There was just a random section from Zor-El's perspective. And it it didn't flow well with the story. And I liked and by removing that section, I also got to reveal the Kal-El's rocket in a more natural way. The deleted scene is Zor-El and Allura and Kara Zor-El reach their home. The world starts to end. Zor-El's thinking like Jor-El's probably trying to get the freaking Phantom Zone projector to go to the Phantom Zone. I referenced that Zor-El didn't like the idea of the Phantom Zone as an escape route. So he's like, I'm not going to put Kara through that, at least. Even if he does go through with the Phantom Zone route, I'm going to give Kara another chance at life, because living in the Phantom Zone is not life. But the thing is, Allura isn't very... Allura is, I guess, what you'd call a normie. She wasn't woke on the destruction of Krypton. So, whenever Jor-El and Zor-El would be at their house talking, there would be flashback scenes. I kind of hinted this at where, again, I hinted this when when it's referenced that Zor-El doesn't like the Phantom Zone idea. That was originally going to be revealed in a flashback. Like a random flashback scene spliced into it. While Zor-El and Jor-El are like talking at Zor-El's house about Krypton going to die, Allura's like, can you stop talking about Krypton dying? That's some depressing talk. And just sits down, as being a wife, and like, Jor-El and Zor-El are like, this is kind of important. And she's like, we've been doing fine so far. Like, Krypton's been around for 1 million years and hasn't blown up yet. I doubt it's going to blow up today or tomorrow or whatever. And so anytime Zor-El tried to talk to Allura about seriously considering an escape route, Allura just kind of hand-waved on, like, you're being ridiculous with your silly conspiracy theories. Zor-El wasn't willing to let Allura get in the way of Kara being saved by being launched into space. So, he knew that he built the rocket, said he was going to send... No, he built the rocket in secret. Allura did not know about the rocket for Kara. Kara did not know about the rocket for Kara. And then, when the world's starting to end, Zor-El was like, I have to do it now. So, he takes Kara down to the basement, reveals the rocket, and gives her like this Kryptonian fruit that just knocks her out. She passes out. He puts her in the rocket, and then Allura walks down the basement because the world's ending, and her husband just snuck their daughter downstairs. So she's like, "What's up?" And then she sees that Zor-El has stuck Kara in a rocket, and technically, yes, it's the only way to save Kara. But Allura hasn't gone through the doomsday prepping like everyone else in the House of El has. So Allura is standing like, what are you doing to my daughter? And Zor-El is like, I know you hate this, but frankly, there's not enough time to argue. I have to do this now. And then fires the rocket. And Allura's like, if you do this, Zor-El, you're crazy. I will never forgive you. But Zor-El's like, I'm sorry, I have to do this. And launches Kara out into space. And then there was supposed to be a contrasting scene where you have the last words between Jor-El and Laura. You know, I love you, Laura. You're a nerd, Jor-El. The last word Zor-El hears is Laura just screaming. That's why Laura is like sort of in this crazy... Laura's in this screaming state when Zor-El is calling Jor-El. Because she's just losing it. The last word Zor-El hears before he dies is Alora's like crazy wailing, just screaming, I hate you, Zor-El. And that's the last he ever hears. But ultimately I got rid of that stuff because it felt weird randomly having a segment from Zor-El's perspective. It allowed me to naturally reveal Jor-El deciding to use the rocket, and Zor-El doesn't survive. Like, there's no point in character development Zor-El. He doesn't show up later on, I mean. But it's supposed to be, like... It was supposed to subvert the expectation. The expectation for a Superman story is that Laura is initially like, what? You can't just send him off in a rocket, and Jor-El's like, it's the only way, and after convincing Laura's like, okay, I guess. In this story, Laura understands immediately because she and Jor-El are in sync. Alora and Zor-El have always been at odds. Well, they've been good as husband and wife, but they've never been in a situation where their relationship has been put to the test, like the end of the world. And, like, you know, Zor-El's a heavy science person. It was supposed to contrast that, like, Alora would go out and do her own stuff while Zor-El was in her lab. Was in his lab. While, as you saw, Laura liked to chill out in Jor-El's lab. It was just supposed to be this foil type thing. Laura and Jor-El in the Kooky universe was supposed to be a subversion of, you expect Laura to be against it at first. But this Laura is like, okay, I understand. Alora subverts the trope because she never accepts it. And that was the whole thing. But that's a deleted scene, not canon. just part of the original draft, I guess. Although technically this is the original draft. The proto-draft, the beta draft. We have 4 people watching, but only 2 people active in the chat. Let's see how live I am. Where am I in this stream? Hope I'm there. How are you guys doing? I don't really have anything else to talk about, so if we should wrap it up here or not. Oh. Alright. I accidentally watched I accidentally clicked watch on YouTube Gaming and was trying to go back. Oh man. I am sorry. YouTube Gaming. I hate that YouTube calls it streams YouTube Gaming. You see how much games we've done on this stream? I get the most popular type of stream is games, but why the heck is this on YouTube Gaming anyway? Exactly. YouTube's gaming interface is better though. But yes, this is no gaming. Alright. Shall we wrap it up then? Alright. Thank you guys all for coming out. I know this stream was more of dreams than it was of memes, but you know, sometimes you just gotta read a 20-page Superman fanfiction. I think that's a nice round chill stream, yeah. So thank you guys so much for coming out, for listening to this stuff. This stream will probably, this section of the stream, after I had to restart my computer, will probably be on Radix repository today or tomorrow. Rip Steve Ditko, yeah, rip Steve Ditko. I know we sort of crapped on his legacy this entire stream, but you know. But thank you guys for coming out. Yeah, I don't know how to end streams. We need to develop a ritual for ending streams. Oh, that's gay.